Your name in the pot. We're here now, gonna ride this spark from a quiet room to a roaring north. Wokko, apple, go live. Turn it up, let the moment arrive. From the first hate chat to the last good night. We ride this life. Wokko, apple, all in. Come on in, let the stories begin. If you're here, then you're part of the show. Let's go. Deep breath in, hear the crowd you can't see. Every little pixel part of this big scene. Hands on keys and a beat in my chest. We make something wild from a simple day. Woke up, go live. Turn it up, let the moment arrive. From the first hate chat to the last good night. We ride this life. Woke up, all in. Come on in, let the stories begin. If you're here, then you're part of the show. Let's go. One name, one flame, we all lean in. New friends, old friends, let the stream begin. Go live. Turn it up, let the moment arrive. From the first hate chat to the last good night. We ride this life. All in. Come on in, let the stories begin. If you're here, then you're part of the show. Let's go. Woke up, Woke up, vamos, we're about to start. Pull up a chair, bring your head and heart. Screen lights up, you found your spot. Chat wakes up, throw your name in the pot. We're here now, gonna ride this spark from a quiet room to a roaring night. Woke up, hot diamonds, go live. Turn it up, let the moment arrive. From the first head chat to the last good night. We ride this life. Woke up, diamonds, all in. Come on in, let the stories begin. If you're here, then you're part of the show. Woke up, diamonds, let's go.
Deep breath in, hear the crowd you can't see. Every little pixel part of this big scene. Hands on keys and a beat in my chest. We make something wild from a simple.
Barley Ho, welcome in. Thank you for that raid, John Boy. We've been streaming this morning. Anyway, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, they, them, z's, zims, cats, dogs, gods and demigods. We're going to start this morning. We're going to run in pretty hot. They've just started a debate that I want to listen to on the House of Lords regarding, how do I say this? Because I'm streaming on YouTube and Twitch and a little bit woke, aren't they? Regarding the ending of what, how do they put it? How have the government put it? I think it's ending of life for terminally ill adults. I think that's what it was called. Yes, legislation, terminally ill end of life bill committee. Okay, so that is how we are saying it. Adults talk about these things. We're going to go straight from the dump. Here we are on the dump. Old Bill is still up there. He still hasn't found my £25 worth of crypto. I don't know, I'm going to sack him one of these days. Anyway, let's just get straight in there. I'll try and turn this audio up as well so we can hear it. I'm not getting any audio, am I? Okay. Well, we'll fix that now. We will fix the audio. Oh, it's because I got it turned off.
Of going into detail, recognising that all the information that we'd asked for to be released.
So we're in the House of Lords, by the way. Okay, so that really funny place, Comedy Gold.
Advocates expect to become a full-time job for people.
I mean, it's full of coffin dodgers as it
discussing
is.
artificial intelligence.
I mean, she's probably the
discussing
youngest
issues
person
to
in
do with
there.
power of attorney. We didn't get on to the new amendments being proposed by the bill sponsor, that basically you could keep going to a different doctor till you got the answer you wanted. I hope we might still reach it. Probably not. Not this time. But being able to check or against potential coercion, that is what has worried people concerned about this bill the most. And that includes people who strongly support the principle. I do fear that many peers and many MPs are putting choice for some ahead of concern on coercion for others. And just like happened in the Scottish Parliament, the more scrutiny this bill has got, the more concerns people have had. That's why I was encouraged by very recent polling of the public that show that people want a safe bill and want the Lords to do their job. Just saying it is safe repeatedly is not enough. Now, I am a Democrat. I used to be an MP. I lost. I'm here. And it is the choice of the Commons that if they decide to try and Parliament Act this bill, that is their absolute privilege, and I respect that. But what I do hope, actually, is that they look at the issues that have been raised in this House, look
They've been
carefully
talking about
at
this
what
for like
has
40
gone
years,
through,
I
not
think
only
about
in the
40
Commons,
or
but,
50
here
years.
and
And they need to get
what are the
along with
unanswered
it.
questions,
Come on, get a move on.
and whether that bill,
The problem
bill
is
before us
this.
still today,
Sorry,
is
my
the right
lady, I'm going
bill
to talk
to
over you,
achieve the
dear.
ends that they wish.
Oh, wait there. Let me turn my
Yes,
mouse
of
and
course.
borders on.
The Noble Baroness will be aware, and I'm sure she will agree, that if the bill comes back a second time to the Commons, it will come back here, and the effect of the Parliament Act is not to stop further debate, but simply to
I'll
prevent
turn it
the
down while I
House from
talk over it.
blocking the bill and not returning it to the
Essentially, how do you know if the real problems unless it's enacted? Once it's enacted, then at least then you can start to find where the real problems or where things that you might not have thought about, and then change and re-change the act. That's the problem with modern law.
I appreciate, I'm aware of the
Modern law is
process.
written, but it's
Can I just
set in
say,
stone. But what
I
you
completely
really need to do is set it in
understand
jelly.
the passions for people who want
That's
assisted
how you
dying
should go on with
in
modern
this country.
the change of
A
rules
variety
for
of
modern
amendments have been
society.
rejected when
Society is
talking about
moving so
pain or
fast.
as others as being a choice.
We live in a different
being
age now to what it
criteria.
was 100 years
Okay.
ago. And a hell of a
Autonomy,
while, even
as I
100
say,
years ago,
versus
society
the
was
risk of
moving
coercion.
fast. But
But I
for the
do
last
think that they should
1,000
come up
years
with a better
before
bill.
that,
Now, my lords, I'm
things
very
more or
conscious
less
that this
stayed
is somewhat longer
very
than I
similar.
intended to. I could
You
say-
know,
have
we
said
didn't
a lot
have
more in response to
high-speed
what
railways,
people
high-speed
have said.
internet,
The two houses are different in
TV,
their processes.
television, you know,
Giving
all those
examples
things.
of popular
People
opinion
couldn't
MPs,
talk to each other
one
from
in particular
around the
had a
world
majority
that quickly like we can
of
now.
304 in the Commons and then never made it through this House. But I'm conscious others do want to speak. And for what it's worth, I do actually want us to go into committee at some point today. With that, my lords, I beg to move.
The original question was that the House do now again resolve itself into a committee upon the bill, since when an amendment has been moved is set out on the order paper and a further amendment has been moved to that amendment. The question I therefore have to put is that Baroness Coffey's amendment to the amendment in the name of Lord Faulkner of Thoroton be agreed
Amendment to the
The
amendment.
Lords
Good
Baroness
God.
Campbell of Surbiton will be taking part remotely, and it has been agreed she will be called as the third noble lord to speak in the debate on this amendment.
The amendment and the amendment and the
I
amendment.
assume that doesn't mean now. Does it mean now? No, the third. Okay, fine. So, my lords, I want to begin personally. As I've mentioned in this debate, my mother was a Marie Curie nurse, supporting terminally ill people through their final days. In 2007, she was diagnosed with late-stage womb cancer. When she was in pain at the end of her life, she was helped by hospice staff, in my own words, to take an earlier train home. That experience changed how I see the debate. I had considered myself broadly in favour of assisted dying because I believe in choice, in personal autonomy. But what I witnessed and what I've learnt since is what has happened to my mother happens quietly all the time across the
Yeah,
country.
it does. Yeah.
Informally and inconsistently, with no upfront oversight, no safeguards. The current ban does not prevent assisted dying. It simply makes it unregulated, unequal and unsafe. It forces some people to travel to Dignitas, often alone, dying earlier than they need to because the law has given them no other way. It leaves their relatives looking over their shoulders, concerned that they might face prosecution for helping their loved ones had their dying wish. It forces others to take their own lives, frightened and alone, or perhaps with assistance, but with no way to protect against abuse. We heard evidence in the Select Committee that 650 terminally ill people commit suicide every year with no controls, no safeguards and no protections under the current legislation. Others, without the ability or resources to take control, risk dying terribly or without dignity, in pain and with suffering. So I came to this bill believing in the principle of assisted dying to allow choice and autonomy, but believing that it needed the skills of this Lordship's House to make the assisted dying the best, the safest process in the world. So I was in favour of setting up the special committee to take evidence. I even sat on it. I was in favour of giving the bill extra time to allow additional scrutiny. It was fitting that we had a similar number of sittings on this bill as the current crime and policing bill. But as Lord Faulkner set out, this bill has had plenty of time compared to other bills. It has just not chosen to use that time wisely. It has taken 20 times longer, 20 times more per page of legislation than other bills, such as the crime
They
and
have been,
policing,
as I was saying earlier,
welfare, health
they've
and security
been
bill.
yapping on about this for
20 times longer.
tens of years.
So I believe it's had plenty of time for scrutiny. And, as I say, we just have not chosen to use that time.
And as I say, how are you going to know all the loopholes and all the potholes unless you get it going? Then you can fix things.
Will state that Lord Faulkner has not been responsive to suggest it.
What they need to do is put an amendment in, but it can be changed within weeks, even days. But once it's been released, it can be paused, changed, pulled back, rather than set it in stone, set it in jelly. That's how they need to do it. Set it in jelly. These are the rules that they must be adhered to. Set this. This is set in jelly. They can change on a weekly basis if need be. Boom, done.
Coerced into assisted dying through them wanting to crowd.
I mean, Jesus, they do that for the SIA.
House was
You know, for the security industry. They change their rules on a weekly basis.
And Lord Faulkner immediately agreed to make the necessary amendments to safeguard this. This was the Lord's at its best, into the detail and understanding the full consequences and then acting to protect. So to me, the real missed opportunity here is that we, by spending so much time on the early clauses and not getting through the bill, it did not have the benefit of this House's wisdom, experience and expertise to go through and make the points and understand it in a very, very clear way that Baroness Monckton
Well, I'm
did
tired.
that day,
Up early this
and the way
morning,
that Lord
video
Faulkner
editing. My
reacted.
video is about to drop.
So
Actually.
that's my true regret to this. And my true regret that we let down 70% of the British population who support assisted dying, who saw the House of Commons pass the bill and don't understand how the Lords can block it without even a vote. But most of all, I'm sorry to those people who are currently terminally ill, for whom the assisted
I think I
dying
should
bill
change this
held out a
scene. I
safe,
think I should be
humane
in
and
this
pain-free
gaming scene.
death of their own choosing.
Oh, good. Well done.
And so I'd like to finish up by remembering some of those people who passed away during the passage of this bill.
That makes it look
we
like
are
I'm
to
actually
regret. Anthony Shackleton
separate
was aged
to it.
59 when he was diagnosed with motor neuron disease. He battled for 6 years and travelled in the end to Dignitas in December 24. He said to his wife Louise, "Look at my options. I could go there and die peacefully, with grace, without pain, or be laid to rest in a bed, not even able to move to see anything unless someone moved my head." He spent his final 4 days laughing and, in his wife's words, in total peace with his decision. For accompanying her husband so he could die with dignity, Louise spent 10 months under police investigation. What he wanted, as he put it, was nothing more than a good death. Kate Bilderbeck was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer in 2022 and died in 2025. A nurse for more than 20 years at Great Ormond Street, her daughter, Poppy, watched her struggle each year to try and blow out a candle. I was forced to watch my only parent lie barely conscious, waking only to cry out in agony. Denying people autonomy at the end of a life benefits no one. My mum's birthday wish was to die. Emma Bray, aged 42, was diagnosed with motor neuron disease and experienced rapid deterioration over 2 years before passing away in July 25. A mother of two, she spent her life protecting victims of domestic abuse. The only legal control she could exercise at the end of her death was to stop eating and drinking. She knew exactly what that meant. Voluntarily stopping eating and drinking is not an easy death, but with the current law in England, this is the only way I have control, she said. I want to protect my children from seeing me choke and struggle to breathe. She wanted to die surrounded by loved ones, music and laughter. She deserved better than starving to death being her only option. And finally, Nathaniel Dye, aged 40, who was known by many of us here as a fearless campaigner who, as I say, many of us had the privilege to meet and understand what a force of nature he truly was. He wanted to know the option was there. His family said that he would have found so much comfort and reassurance had he known it was available in his case of need. That reassurance alone, the mere knowledge that they can choose to die peacefully, matters enormously to the dying. There are many, many, many more people I could mention. My lords, the current law does not protect people, it abandons them, often to die in pain, sometimes to die without dignity, sometimes to die alone in a foreign country, or on relying on the quiet, unregulated compassion of those around them. My mother was fortunate. Many are not. These people, nurses, teachers, parents, magistrates, deserved better. So do thousands of people like them who face the same choice or the absence of one this year and every year that follows. Our colleagues in the other place raised the hopes of the nation last year by passing this bill, and I'm sorry that we've let them down. And all I can say and pledge, and I know I speak for many, many of our colleagues here, is that we will try, and we will try again to bring this bill back as soon as possible in the next session, to do what is right democratically, and most importantly of all, to give those people who are terminally ill hope and choice of a better way to die.
My Lords, I rise as one of the Lords Spiritual and as a member of the Select Committee which examined this bill. I do so with a deep sense of responsibility for the integrity of our legislative process and for the dignity and protection of those whose lives may be most directly affected by what we decide. I've been deeply moved by the personal stories that have been shared by noble lords in recent months and wish to acknowledge my noble friend's stories that he shared with us just now. My own dear cousin died earlier this week from a condition that could, at many stages, have been described as terminal. She continued resolutely to live life to its fullness, and her sudden death is a matter of great sadness to me. In our context, where questions of life, death, care and conscience are so closely intertwined, the quality of our scrutiny is not a procedural detail, it is a moral necessity. Some may dismiss my contribution as one which is grounded in a faith, But this is as legitimate and significant as any other viewpoint, grounded in faith, belief, or none. Whilst my faith informs my alarm at our designation of dignity or the lack of it, it is from my experience on the Select Committee that I have found that the more closely we have examined this bill, the more concerns have come into focus, not fewer. For a bill of this magnitude in terms of societal change, the highest level of scrutiny is imperative. Within our own proceedings, there has been an acknowledgement, even from those closely involved in the bill, that it is not yet in a settled or satisfactory form. When such admissions are made, it is incumbent upon us to listen with care. The Select Committee heard evidence that raised a number of unresolved and deeply serious questions. These questions were practical as well as deeply principled. Whether the state should be obligated to address unmet need before assisting someone to die, even if in doing so the person's mind might be changed. How we ensure that we continue to uphold our duty to suicide prevention for those who are terminally ill. How such a significant change in the law would be delivered in a way that does not put vulnerable people at further risk. How this would work for
Hey, Dustin D,
vulnerable
Ballyhole man.
populations who do not have the same choice, such as prisoners.
I've lost my
These are not
text now.
marginal
Bloody
concerns.
OBS.
They go to the heart of how we understand protection, vulnerability, and moral responsibility. Across this House, peers from many different perspectives have expressed concern. That breadth of unease ought not to be dismissed lightly. Yet I share the concern that the time afforded for debate has often been limited in ways that do not reflect the gravity of the subject before us. When the bill was first introduced, it contained a number of delegated powers of a kind that no laws
it's the same
have
as
already
background as what
pointed
I've got
out
in
rightly
my...
attracted concern. While some adjustments may have been
So,
made, the
this is
underlying issue
just to
remains.
fill you in on what's
Whether
happening
too
here.
much
This
has
is
been
a
left unresolved,
political...
to be determined later rather than clarified now.
This is
There
House of
must be
Lords,
opportunity for a deliberative process
and this is
as these
the
are examined.
talk about end of
Moreover,
life
the
terminally
committee,
ill
and indeed
people,
the House more broadly, has raised a number of detailed questions
which
to which clear answers
can
have
seem
not always
controversial,
been
especially when you look what
forthcoming
happened in
from the
Canada.
government
So they're
or its
trying to
advisors.
make sure that what
lack
happens
of
in Canada
clarity
doesn't happen in Britain.
makes it difficult for us to discharge our
Of course, it's
duty
still
with
not
the
legal in
confidence
Britain
that
yet.
is required.
And they've been talking about it for about 40
My
years
lords,
in the
my
House of
ministry,
Lords.
I'm often reminded that how we care for those at the end of life is a measure of our common life together. That care must be marked by compassion, by clarity, and by a steadfast commitment to protect the most vulnerable.
It's going to
that
change
reason, I
scenes a
believe
minute.
we
I need
must
to see if I can get this
continue
text
to
working
proceed
again.
with great caution until the questions that have been raised are answered more fully, and
it's
until
gone.
this bill has received the depth of
Fuck's sake,
scrutiny
my
it
scrolling
requires,
ticker's gone.
it would be irresponsible to allow it to move forward. This is not about resisting change. It is about ensuring that any change we make is just, humane, and worthy of the trust that is placed in us.
Lords, Baroness Campbell of Surbiton is taking part remotely. I invite the noble Baroness to speak.
My lords, as requested by the noble and learned Lord Faulkner, I have reflected on the progress we have made on the terminally ill adults end-of-life bill to date. I know we have engaged in vital scrutiny work and made progress, although for supporters of the bill, it does seem agonisingly slow. I'm acutely conscious that the role of this House is not to rubber stamp legislation. It demands that we draw upon our knowledge, our experience, and research evidence to demonstrate why revision is necessary. And most importantly, to insist firmly, that a bill is made safe before it leaves us. That is our constitutional duty, and it is what we have been doing over the past 14 weeks in committee on this bill.
Yet our work has been dismissed as filibustering or worse. My lords, that is simply not true. The breadth of participation in this House reflects deep and genuine concerns shared by NHS doctors, human rights bodies and disability organisations about the risks this particular legislation may pose to the most vulnerable. I have spent over 2 decades studying similar laws internationally. I have long supported autonomy for disabled people. But autonomy without protection is not freedom, it is risk. And when the outcome is irreversible, that risk must be treated with the utmost seriousness. Public opinion is given to reflect that caution, despite the high-profile celebrities fronting their campaign for assisted dying. Of course, they get the headlines. Actor Miriam Margolyes's recent outburst against, and I quote, a cohort of rabid Catholic privileged lords out to sabotage the bill was heard loud and clear. But please don't be mistaken. This is not a reflection of public opinion. The latest polling by Waterhouse Insight Agency shows there is no clear or informed public mandate for this bill. Around 4 in 10 people do not understand that assisted dying involves administering lethal drugs. When voters are better informed, support falls away. Nor is this a public priority, with far greater concern focused on NHS pressures and social care. Importantly, the same polling shows strong support for the role of this House. A clear majority of the public believes the House of Lords has a duty to amend or block legislation if it risks harm. That is not a call for us to step aside, it is a call for us to do our job. Without significant amendment, this bill cannot guarantee protection for those in vulnerable situations or those outside its intended scope, nor can it ensure that decisions are made entirely free from pressure. These concerns are shared by, for example, the Royal College of Psychiatrists, the Royal College of GPs, where is it? The Equality Commission. Sorry, that you've lost me here. The Equality and Human Rights Commission and disability organisations. Even Liberty, an organisation long associated with defending individual freedoms, cannot support this bill. They warned Parliament at second reading that the risk to those whose rights are fragile must also be protected. As they put it, the autonomy of one group cannot override the rights of another. Rights must be carefully and proportionally balanced. This bill fails that test. I also struggle to understand why the bill's sponsor appears unwilling to recognise the weight of expert evidence. I welcomed his open door policy to engage with our concerns, and I sought to assist him to understand the nature of a terminal prognosis. I arranged for 2 eminent intensive care consultants from St Thomas's Hospital to meet with him. They provided a clear tutorial on prognostication for the noble and learned lord. They demonstrated a 6-month prognosis cannot provide a reliable foundation for legislation of this kind. But has he returned with amendments of his own to address this deficit in the bill? No. Much of the chatter around the debate, inside and outside this chamber, focuses on motives. It should not. Our role is to examine all available evidence, test safeguards, and make revisions. Disabled people who have contacted me are very clear. This particular bill frightens them, and they want me to explain to your lordships why it is dangerous for them. They fear unequal access to care shaping their choices. They fear subtle coercion that cannot be easily detected. They fear error in prognosis. They fear persistent assumptions about the value of their lives. And they fear a system already under strain being asked to deliver decisions of the utmost gravity. These are real and repeated concerns. I have contributed to amendments which have sought to strengthen safeguards to that end. That is not obstruction, it is our duty. After 14 weeks, it is clear more work is needed before this legislation can be considered safe. My Lords, I am here to help prevent harm, particularly to those least heard. That is why I will continue to press for stronger safeguards.
If this bill is to proceed, it must clearly demonstrate that it can protect those in highly vulnerable situations while respecting the wishes of those it is intended to serve. At present, it does not meet that test. My Lords, that is where careful scrutiny has brought us so far. In the absence of actual amendments, we now have a better understanding of the risks and the changes we need to make when or if a similar bill returns to this House. That, my Lord, is progress. Thank you.
Lords, I rise to express my agreement with the noble and learned Lord Faulkner's concern that the committee stage of this bill should have been completed. I wanted to be part of a process which amended this bill so we could reach report stage and have some meaningful votes on certain parts of this bill with which I disagree profoundly. And I want to thank the noble Lord for his acknowledgement of my part in some discussions we had, to which I'll refer in a moment. I also wanted to say, my Lords, what a singular privilege it is to speak shortly after the noble Lord Markham, who made a moving, personal and brave speech. I think what he illustrated is that when we debate difficult issues like this, we should, as members of the House of Lords, be seeking to embrace an agreement in the final analysis.
So yeah, pretty heavy stuff today. So comedies or
and we really should
take the piss is kind of out of the question. Yeah.
It does raise some questions, which I hope the Leader of the House and the Chief Whip will take into account, of the suitability of committee stage in your Lordship's House for private members' bills of this general kind, conscience issues, major conscience issues, coming from the House of Commons. The noble and learned Lord, in the technical language of this House, is not my noble friend, but he is my learned friend of many decades. And I can say to your Lordships that that phrase, my learned friend, which I have about many others in this House, is a bond of friendship, however we disagree. And we have all been trying, I think, though a number of the lawyers here have disagreed about issues, to find a consensus for this bill. Of course, my noble friend, Lord Falconer, noble Lord Falconer, if you allow me to tease him slightly, has shown in this House his barrister's skills and the skills that made him such a distinguished Lord Chancellor. His powers of preparation, his knowledge of the law, his facility with competing conceptual issues. He's a fine advocate, but I'm going to let you into a trade secret, my lords, for there are dangers of brilliance among advocates. It's a fact that the very best advocates are the ones who lose the most cases because they are given the most difficult cases to argue. And I fear this has been an example, and it would be perhaps unkind to say of the noble lord that he's demonstrated his powers to make a silk or silk's purse out of a sow's ear. But this bill has many imperfections. Not least, those imperfections are in its failure to safeguard the most vulnerable. Now, I absolutely agree that the noble lord has made some concessions, and he's mentioned them, and some of them are important concessions. But he did mention, very kindly, the attempt that he and I had made, as I thought it together, to try and bring back, as was in the original version of this bill when it started its course in the House of Commons, that the ultimate governance of the process of assisted suicide, assisted dying, should be with the courts, rather than with the largely unaccountable panels which are set up under an untested system which was introduced in the House of Commons by amendments. I think the promoters of this bill made a serious mistake doing that. A former Lord Chief Justice, my noble friend Lord Burnett, was made a Knight of the Garter this week. There's a reason why we have such confidence in senior judges, because they are able to ensure ultimate governance of the laws passed by these Houses of Parliament. I was disappointed and I was surprised that the noble and learned Lord did not agree to a process which was available for us to meet with officials and parliamentary draftsmen to try and produce an acceptable and mutually agreeable version of my Amendment 150, which was debated on the first day of this committee stage and would have introduced...
I think that looks a little bit better for this sort of thing. I might change the moving background for one of these.
Well, that's all right. Had, but he did not take the advantage of trying to go through that process when it was available during the course of committee stage. And I believe, my lords, that if we had reached an agreement, and there was a formula available which we talked about, if we had reached agreement, we might have shortened quite a lot of the debate
got a groovy tie
in your lordship's house on this bill.
It's like a knitted tie.
I also would say, as kindly as I can to the noble and learned lord, that I think it's rather hyperbolic to allege that this bill has illegitimately...
I saw you eating a sweetie, madam. I saw you eating a sweetie.
Yes, it has been delayed by this
We
House,
watched you eating
but the question
sweeties.
is as to the legitimacy of that delay.
There's a kid in here.
We heard
Look at this.
earlier...
You see that? There's a
from
little
the,
kid in here.
Noble lady who moved the
Like
amendment.
an 8-year-old kid.
And I
What's
would
he doing
remind
and listening to
noble
us
learned Lord
this bloody
that
conversation?
much of the opposition has not come from old fogies like me. I'm now a veteran of this.
Well, at least he
House.
knows
I've
he's
been
an
here
old
26
fogey.
years after 14 in the other place. Much of the opposition has come from a group of, if they'll forgive me, newbies to this House, but not newbies to Parliament. Noble lords and ladies who were cabinet
Teach him young.
ministers
Yeah, I
in
know.
very
Do you
recent
see him?
time, and who have the
Let's see if it goes to that
spirit and
outside view
intent
again.
of
It looks
the
like a kid.
House
I
of
mean, I could
Commons
be
very
wrong,
much in
but
their minds in the work they do in the House of Lords, and we are in
Bring your-
general terms
bring your
very
kid to
grateful
work day, is it?
for having them here. But what they were doing was not coming here as newbies to obstruct that House. of
Maybe
which
as their
they'd been
sacrificial
members
lamb.
for many years, even if they lost their seats, which I didn't, by the way. But I think they came here to do exactly what it says on the tin, as it were, to amend draft legislation so it's fit for purpose, and to try and do so, as I stated earlier, by agreement, not by disagreement. So although I do wish that they had at times been quicker and had put down fewer amendments, they have been doing what we are here for, to make draft legislation fit for purpose. If there is a further bill, we should, as a House, be less obdurate. And the noble and learned lord, whoever is the sponsor of the bill, should be less obdurate. We should have a stronger critical faculty, and we should have an ambition to complete
what the hell
the
does the word
process of the House.
obdurate mean?
My
I'll
final
have to look
words
up
are
that.
just to remind your lordships of what this bill does. This bill is intended to give a citizen the power deliberately to bring about the death
to close
of
or to
another
obstruct.
citizen. Something that since the end of capital
That's what the
punishment
word
has
obturate
not
means.
been available to citizens of this country
like, shut things
except
down.
in a legitimate war. Let's not forget the importance of what is being asked for.
Oh, it's getting rowdy in the House of Lords. That's unusual. Whoa. It's pill time. Someone needs their pills.
My lords, my lords, my lords.
Order.
This House has debated assisted dying this century on 9 occasions.
Yes.
First in 2003
All through my life.
and then in 2005. And there are very few members in the House today who spoke in those debates, with the possible exception of the Baroness Finlay of Llandaff. She was
Sounds like a Welsh one.
devoted
Llandaff.
opponent to the bill of those days, just as I was a devoted supporter of it. But all those debates were about private bills that originated in this House. What we have now is a bill coming from the House of Commons. It is not a government bill, but it did receive a great deal of debate and amendment and improvement, and then it was sent to us. But we do not exist as a House, my lords, to frustrate the determined will of the House of Commons. Our task is to examine bills, which they don't do themselves in any measured way today, to improve them and to
Lords.
send them back.
I'm telling you, Lord.
But
To
this
our
has been
Lord.
frustrated by,
Lord
in
of the
fact,
Manor.
a group
Normally
of
meant someone that
relatively
owned
small
a certain,
people.
like quite a
Just
large
7
amount of
have
land.
Actually, have amended nearly over 1,000 amendments, and that is a tiny minority by any standard, my lords. And I believe that the prolonged filibuster which they embarked upon is a constitutional farrago. It's a denial of democracy, and it is a return to give to this House the wrecking powers which were taken away from us in 1912. And I would like to congratulate Lord Faulkner for the very patient way he dealt with the very repetitive speeches that he heard that were full of absurd exaggerations.
So
and
can you see
extravagant
here, you've got
fantasies.
the religious...
He didn't lose his cool, and that is quite remarkable.
So the church
And I'd
gets to
also like thank
sit in the
Carlyle,
House of Lords.
who's just talking to somebody, but I would like to thank Lord Carlyle for
No,
his very
which makes
effective
Britain a
contributions
Christian
to
or...
improving the bill. He came forward
Well,
with several
Christian
proposals,
Catholics,
but he too is frustrated
a Christian
from implementing
nation.
them at the moment
So this, all
as a
this
result of us
importing
returning
all
the bill
these
to the House of Commons in the
people
way
from
that
other
we have
faiths and
seen.
religions and giving them power shouldn't
I
really be
support
happening.
this bill for 2 reasons. It will reduce the suffering of many elderly people who are suffering a prolonged death, and nothing was more eloquent than the speech of my noble friend Lord Markham about that. And we are particularly well suited in the House to debate this sort of measure, because on the whole we're rather older than most MPs, and we have all experienced the deaths of friends and colleagues and relatives. Only this week, one of my closest friends who's a crossbencher in this House died. I had tea with him the previous week. Robert Skidelsky. We were very close friends. We lived close to each other. He was a brilliant economist, but he was also a very good bridge player.
Oh, we should give Rachel
And I
Reeves
shall
some
miss him
bloody...
enormously. He is one of the lucky ones, as it were. But one of the 2 reasons why I support this bill is that it does reduce the suffering of people when they slowly begin to lose the control of their own bodies. It's very interesting what the Bishop said.
You just dropped me
because
$5.
in debates in the past, the main argument was
Some
sanctity
boy,
of
man,
life.
what are you doing that for?
It's only the bishops
plonker.
that make that argument any longer.
You can't be
No
affording
one
to
will
give me
make
$5.
that
Hey,
argument
thank you,
any
John.
longer. What we're concerned with is the safeguards. And this
I
bill
only
will
know
reduce
one,
the
Lord,
suffering
says
of
Dustin
people,
D.
because As
he's
we
pointing to his...
slowly lose the control over our own bodies,
The one
and
upstairs.
people can't get up and
Ah,
dress
right there.
themselves,
The Lord and
wash
Saviour.
themselves, and feed themselves, or prepare the food, or walk, or
Thank
run,
you, John.
or engage in any life whatsoever.
Why am
then
I...
they
oh,
lose
they're not
control
on
of
here,
their
that's
bowels and
why.
their bladder.
I'm in a
It is
different
very
scene. I haven't got my...
unpleasant way to die. Very, very unpleasant. And
Oh, I haven't got
think
my, what do you
that
call it in
can
here? My alerts
go
aren't
to
in
palliative
here.
care. You can anaesthetise pain, but you cannot anaesthetise indignity.
Thank you, John.
And
Was
this
it payday?
allows people to die in a very dignified way, in a sensible way, at their own homes.
Oh, thank you, John.
Now, there's another compelling reason why this bill should actually pass, because I did ask for some evidence from the research people in our library as to how many prosecutions and convictions for alleging suicide each year have occurred over the last 10 years. How many got to court? Well, from 2015 to 2025, only 10 went to court, and there were only 2 convictions. I tried to find out what the sentences were for the 2 convicted, but you can't get that information at all easily. I suspect they were probably suspended sentences. So in fact, the law against suicide for elderly people is not effectively operating.
And my pip potato. Nice. Nice one, John.
Because every
don't go blowing it all, though.
prosecutor will know that when faced with a court hearing where the accused person has killed his wife or the wife has killed the husband, and they have done it not from greed, not for getting the bungalow, but for actually love. And juries will not convict. And so we have a law on the statute book which is not being effectively operated. And the police
Good
have
point
really
to be made there.
disengaged.
Some of these
in
lords
fact,
are
in
pretty
promoting
smart,
such
like
cases.
they're pretty
This is
good
the evidence
upstairs.
Again, I got from the library.
Their bodies
From
may be
April
failing, but some of their minds
29
are
to
quite
March
good.
25, 199 cases were referred to the public prosecutor by the police for assisted suicide. Of these 199 cases, 131... Sorry.
Just give way.
My lords, I hesitate to interrupt the noble Lord Baker, but I am sure he would want the House to be aware that the Attorney General's guidelines has assisted in enabling prosecutors to make decisions which would obviate the need for prosecution where there is no evidence that the person assisting did it other than by love. So the fact that there are so few prosecutions is something we should celebrate as opposed to criticise, because those
Whoa, what,
that go
Dustin
forward
David?
are
What the hell? What the
there
hell?
is
Everyone getting paid
evidence
today.
that which
Oh, it
was
is.
done
Is it? It's
was
the last
not
Friday
well
of the
done
month, isn't
and
it?
should be
I forgot that. Hey, thank you, Dustin. Top man, man.
The police have
Fucking hell.
decided very clearly what the position
I'm
is.
sitting here watching boring old Lord
Since
House of
2009
Lords, and everyone's
25,
dropping money. I might have to watch House of Lords a bit more.
Refer to the Director of Public Prosecution.
Thank you, guys.
By the police that recorded as assisted suicide.
That's much
Of these
appreciated.
199 cases,
I'll put that to good use.
131 were not proceeded with by the Director of Public Prosecutions.
I don't know how
and were
long, much
withdrawn,
longer
and
this
the
is going to
police
go
then
on for this
withdrew
House of Lords
39
thing.
of the
I need to put
So
my
this is not a law that is
alerts on
operating
here.
Today because
Hold on,
juries
I'll
will
be
not
back in 2
convict.
seconds.
And my lord, I would...
Let me just grab my alerts.
I don't want to interrupt him, the noble lord, again, but I think it's right for him to know that this matter came before the Attorney General, myself, to determine how we should address this problem. How could we make
Right,
it
they're
better?
on here
How
now.
could we differentiate between those who should validly be prosecuted and those who should not? And the Director of Public Prosecution then has a duty to implement the Attorney General's guidelines when making a decision as to whether or not to prosecute, and they have duly done so.
I do recognise there is that power, but it is very rarely used. That's the point I'm making all the time. juries will not convict. Now, this has happened before in our history, my lords. There was a time when the law decided that youngsters as well as 10 or 12 could be hanged for stealing a pocket handkerchief. But that fell away because juries would not convict. And similarly, I do not believe that, in fact, the present law on suicide can, in fact, operate effectively.
Victorian times used to hang the kids,
changed.
man. A lot of people in here, although they're old, they don't understand their history. They need to have a little history reminder.
Keep going, Brendan. My lords, I've spoken only once previously in the many long hours of debate on this bill. That was at second reading when I told the story of Daniel, the much-loved son of the noble Lord Monks, who in the absence of any form of assisted dying in this country and faced with intolerable suffering, starved himself to death in 2024. Like many others around our country, I had strong
I think the old chap does know what he's
that
talking
this
about.
bill would have given for the
And
first
he just
time
basically, he just
people
literally,
very close to the
like,
end of their life, some
he
choice
just dished her
on
completely
how
with
to
like
leave
a
this
smart
world.
reply.
While remaining silent in the chamber, it quickly became very clear to me that an additional voice was certainly not needed. I've been distressed and disturbed by what I've witnessed here. As I was coming into this place a little over a year ago now, I was given to understand that we had two central responsibilities. Our job was not to seek to displace or overturn the elected House, but to act as a scrutinising and revising chamber. So, how well have we carried out those responsibilities? As the noble Lord Faulkner reminded us, this is a bill of 59 clauses. In committee, after 120 hours of debate, we've managed to scrutinise only 7 of those clauses. The rest of the bill, 52 clauses, has received no scrutiny whatsoever.
He did.
And as to our responsibility to propose
spaces in
revisions for the elected House to consider, well, there have been a handful of entirely non-contentious matters where revisions have been made during committee stage, but of course substantive revisions would fall to be considered and voted on at report stage, and we have never come even close to reaching that point. So in sum, we have abjectly failed in our responsibilities as a scrutinising and revising chamber. It became apparent very early on during committee stage that the rate of progress was utterly glacial. The noble Lord Faulkner proposed a motion to
I like
the House,
that.
seeking
Progress was
additional time
glacial.
if
In other words, it was so
necessary,
slow
and
you could hardly
committing
know
the
it was
House
moving.
to completing
That's a
consideration
good term.
of the bill in good order to return it to the Commons. Nobody voted against it, but also nobody changed the form or the length of their contributions to these debates, even by a tiny amount, to make its objective achievable. And all efforts by the noble Lord Faulkner, as he reminded us, to establish more streamlined processes came to naught.
Well,
Now,
the
there's
problem
been a
is they've gone
catch-all
soft on
justification
some and
that
way
we've heard
too
again
hard on
today,
others.
offered by some of the
Let me
bill's
just turn this guy down
opponents.
because he's just
That it-
blabbing on. So you take like freedom of speech, like so-called hate laws, they've just gone absolutely insane on. And yet things like shoplifting and things like that, they just don't care about anymore. Or like people just like living in the streets in a tent.
Disrespectful and insulting slur on the sponsors of the bill and all those highly expert advisers who've supported the sponsors at every stage of the bill's preparation. I also think it rather ignores the very detailed consideration the bill received in the elected chamber. In many cases, with
Hey,
honourable
Hungry
members,
Planet, Bally Ho Man. How are you?
with great respect, I'd like to conclude my remarks. In the
You
elected
tell 'em, boy.
chamber, with many cases of honourable members weighing their positions after close consultation with deeply interested constituents. Noble lords may disagree with the bill and oppose its objectives, but please don't claim that there is some grave technical deficiency in it to justify that position. Now, I've used throughout these remarks the word "we" in describing the House's handling of this bill, but this is not about the House as a whole, because what has become abundantly clear to me, and I suspect to many people in the wider community, is how a relatively small number of people in this place have been able to use its procedures, not to scrutinise or revise a bill supported by the elected House, but simply to seek to block it. In my younger days, I attended a number of lively demonstrations, led by the chant, "Kill the bill!" Well, the message and intent of some colleagues may have been less brutally expressed in this House, but the objective has been
Yes, indeed.
clear.
Trump snap food
Many
stamps.
noble lords
Oh,
have
right, yeah,
raised
yeah, snap, yeah, it's
reservations
called
on
the snap
particular
stamps,
points
yeah.
in the bill,
Apparently it just
but
went
they've
into
seen it as
effect
their
and people are
duty to
pissed.
seek what
They
they
can't
consider
buy
would be
soda and
improvements.
candy with
They too
taxpayer
have been
dollars.
thwarted by the actions of those
Oh,
determined
yeah,
to
because
block its
RFK's had a thing with it, hasn't he?
Indeed, the whole House has been denied any meaningful.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good thing. Like, you shouldn't be able to spend them.
On what
I think
it was
I've gone on
seeking
about it.
to
Let me turn
achieve.
this guy down a minute.
Now, this may now prompt a wider debate.
So in the UK, you can just like spend it on whatever you want. They send it as cash into your bank account.
Are justifiable when they can be used so blatantly to overturn the expressed will of the elected chamber. Now, I recognise that many noble lords have genuine.
I think that's right. I think you shouldn't be able to spend it on alcohol or like really
Perhaps
like
as a
high,
result of
bad
their
quality
faith,
food.
Or just a strong
Spend it on
personal
vegetables,
conviction
stuff like that.
That this bill can
Milk.
never build in enough safeguards to satisfy.
The thing
their
is, it'll teach these people to cook
I
because if they want cakes, they'll
and
have to make
respect
it themselves and bake them themselves. They'll have to buy
is it
sugar
right
and
on that
flour
basis
and water and milk.
to use the
Well, not buy
privileged
water, but buy
position
milk and
this
all the
House
stuff to make
gives
your
to
own
each of us
cakes
to
and
impose
sweets and
that
cookies. And
personal view
it could be a
on
good
the
thing.
membership of the House as a whole.
Hey, if ever there's a
think
time to start making YouTube
Now, that is
videos
a
on
matter of
cooking,
interest
now is the
to those of
time.
us concerned with constitutional issues in our democracy and institutions. Though I have to say I would not run a local trade union branch meeting.
You can make your own soda using sugar,
To make in this
like high sweet sugar, well,
way
lemonade,
that
isn't
so
it?
many lords
Famously
take
in America,
great
people make
pride in.
lemonade stands.
But as we lay this bill to rest and pronounce the last rites over it, at least for now, I think first of all of those ordinary decent people, perhaps with deeply loved ones in circumstances such as those that faced Daniel, yearning to see this change enacted. They will be bewildered and outraged to understand how it has foundered in this place. On this matter, the House has not served our nation well.
Or an opportunity to reflect on this debate.
Yeah, I think that's good, Mum.
It's approaching 250 members who've
Maybe
spoken
milk, bread,
in
water,
the
eggs,
debate.
meat, spices, vegetables. I think
not
they'll be able
the
to buy,
minority that
surely
have
be able to
been
buy
spoken
sugar
about.
for baking,
I
because you need sugar for baking.
I'm a past president
If you want to
of the
buy
Local
like
Register of Churches and a
flour,
fellow
eggs,
of the
milk
other
and
Royal
sugar
Colleges.
and butter you need for baking or
When my
margarine.
husband was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, he read that motor neuron disease is the most feared illness. He took a different view.
I'm
He
not a
joked
great
that he was
cook.
just
I
fading
can
away.
cook. I wouldn't say I'm a
He
great
had
cook.
good care. I wish everybody did. He died naturally and peacefully at home with a smile on his face. My lords, fear is infectious. Please let's not feed on fear. The bill's aim
My sister's
was
a
to
good.
provide
My sister and
patients
mother
with
are good
choice at
cooks.
the
Like
end
they
of
do a
their
lot of
lives.
baking. I don't
For this
do
to be
baking.
meaningful, it needs to be a meaningful choice.
My sister made yesterday. She made Jaffa
A real
cakes,
choice. And
like
I've
proper
introduced
ones.
amendments to
They're
try
like
to
in
address
a.
the other side of choice.
They're like little
The lack of
squares.
palliative
Wow,
care
they
and
look
the
amazing.
gaps in
I haven't tried
services
one
that
because I'm on my
underlie
diet.
so
I've started.
many
I've
of the
restarted my
distressing
diet.
stories that we've heard. The lack of clarity about the actual means by which someone would be assisted to end their own life.
People don't realise
And
if
the
you
risk of
buy.
implicit
Let me
institutional
turn this
coercion
old
when
bird
you
down a minute. If you buy vegetables and cook your own food, you can actually make food like pretty cheap. Like if your junk food's expensive, it looks cheap when you see it, but it's actually not. It's expensive.
It was a day that changed mine and my family's lives forever. The outcome could have been so very different, and I don't like to think about that.
Well, at the very least, more people will learn to cook, which is a good thing, rather than buying fucking Uber Eats.
About whether to live or die was in the hands of the doctor, and let me explain. The doctor's clinical team had been distressed when a judge...
Johnny's been cooking, ain't you, John?
...previous patient
John does some
with
cooking.
a high-level spinal injury to turn off her life support. He didn't want to put his team through it again. Just one case of having to turn off a young woman's life support had been enough to change his attitude and the culture of care in his team. Now, my unconscious daughter was being ventilated after a major injury, and he was refusing to admit her to intensive care. My daughter's husband was the chief persuader
That's good
to give her a
healthy eating,
chance
though.
to live, to admit her
Bit
to
of venison,
intensive
mate.
care,
That's
to
what we
give her a
call that
chance
over here, venison.
to respect the
My
choice
stepson
of
eats
those
a
who
bit,
knew
quite a
her
lot of
best.
venison.
And during the conversation that followed, the surgeon was in tears about the situation. And I, the mother of his new patient, was his comforter. He thought that my daughter's life would not be worth living, that she would be so disabled that she would soon ask for her life support to be turned off too. He did admit her. She recovered consciousness, she had a high-level spinal injury and would be permanently paralysed, and she couldn't talk. We taught her to spell words by opening her eyes letter
Original
by letter,
91
as we
Atomics, my
recited the
wake-up
alphabet
music
to
these
her.
days.
And 10 days after her injury, she blinked the letters of a poem.
My wake-up music
gave
is
us
is the theme tune to
It went like
Halo.
this.
The bit where he's
Still
like
silent
driving.
body,
Da-da-da-da,
but within,
da-da-da-da,
my spirit
da-da-da-da,
sings,
da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
And 21 years later,
I don't
this
think it'll
is her
play through my
reflection,
thing because I've got.
dictated on her phone.
I would put it on my phone.
I
That's
love
my
my
alarm
life,
every morning.
And I'm so grateful for my family for fighting for it. I'm grateful to all those clinicians who
Oh,
helped
here we
to
go.
keep
Yeah,
me
Johnny
alive
sent me a
after my
picture of his
injury,
new Wi-Fi board.
believing in the value
Are you
of
going with the
life,
Intel
especially
one?
in those
I'm
early
telling you, that
days
Intel's
when
good
I
value
doubted
for
it
money.
myself. I'm grateful to have a health system that supports and cares for
It's got to
disabled
be. What was
that
the
enable
number?
me to live a
1381 or
happy, full,
1481?
useful life as a wife, a mother, a teacher, and a mentor in my family and in the wider community. Even though I don't know how my health will look in the future, what I have learned over the past 2 decades of living with a spinal injury is that in the midst of the challenges, there are far more surprising gifts than I could ever have imagined. My lords, my point is this.
Sure, that's
There
a-
is
that's a
real
beautiful
risk
board,
of
John.
implicit coercion at both
Nice.
interpersonal and institutional levels. And this must be
Would
considered
it fit
alongside
that
explicit coercion
CPU
in
though?
any future legislation.
I'll have a look on the.
Keeping assisted dying outside the NHS may mitigate these systemic and institutional pressures. I have tried to find some ways to make this bill safer, to minimise any unintended consequences on patient care and on the NHS. Sadly, the noble and learned Lord responded to all of my amendments with the words, "I don't agree." I conclude that my concerns and the concerns expressed by the medical royal colleges and organisations representing disabled people have not and could not be addressed.
John Boy meat pie. Oh yeah. I don't know what they. Yeah, I think they call it the same thing in the US, don't they? Ooh, ooh. It's not often it gets rowdy in this place.
Former boss, but with the greatest respect to a number of lords, I think what we are hearing is, in a sense, what we would have heard had we taken this bill to third reading. We're hearing debates about the principle of the bill, whereas this is a debate about where we have reached and how we should perhaps have dealt with this bill, or indeed how we should deal with a bill if we are presented with a bill like this in a future session. So I want to focus on that point, and I'm very glad actually to have followed the noble Lord Carlisle, because I think he devoted, made some very important and substantial points about how we should do that. So a few noble lords might remember that several weeks ago I said I thought our responsibility was to proceed with the bill to the point at report where we are considering and improving the bill by amendment and voting on that, and that we should therefore take the bill to third
Here's a
reading.
pie. Typically, is it? Oh, yeah. So what do you call?
And in order to
Yeah, but you do have pies because
I would withdraw.
my mum used to make a Canadian pie called a hominy pie. No, not a hominy. Yeah, was it hominy? Hominy pie, which is like pork mince.
The noble Lord Hunt of King's Heath and the noble Lord Bishop of Southwark in assisting in withdrawing those amendments. I don't think any other noble lords did that, to my
Yeah, of course, America they call like.
What I want to say,
But we call them over here the same
sentence
as well. A pie can be a dessert and it can be a
regulatory house.
I think it just makes anything with a pastry crust, more or less.
We have to regulate ourselves, because we cannot rely upon somebody else doing it for us. We did not do that. And I think we have to think very carefully
meat pies are
about
massive in the UK.
any future bill that
Like
we receive.
every fish and chip
seek
shop
to
has
do
like
that.
meat pies.
I think we should do it through our normal procedures.
And do you have
perhaps with-
pasties? That's
as
what I
the
want to know.
Lord
No, you probably
Carlisle
don't,
said,
don't it? Because that's a
thinking
very
again
British
and
thing,
differently
pasties. Like
about
our
how
biggest
we conduct
selling,
the committee
it's
procedures
big of a
in
McDonald's
relation
is
to the bill at
Greg's.
this time.
Greg's pasties.
But
Everyone
we
loves
definitely
Greg's.
should do it substantively.
Although
at
here
the
in
with
where
votes.
we live in West
Now,
Wales,
it seems to me when we see a new bill, I do not wish to
what's
see,
it called?
I don't know what the
Jenkins makes the best pasties.
proposals will be in
Oh
another
my God,
place.
Jenkins pasties,
But we
it's a dime
definitely
for.
shouldn't
And the
see
bread,
the
Jenkins
same bill
bread, man.
presented back to us by way of the Parliament Act procedure. I think the sponsors of the bill should recognise that the debates that we have seen and the amendments that we have seen but not necessarily debated, of which several are mine, should be incorporated into revisions to the bill, substantial revisions to the bill. I would draw attention to just two. One, not least, because listening to Baroness Hollins, I agree with her that we need more by way of safeguards in relation to the availability of standards of palliative and end-of-life care built into the bill. One of my amendments was to that effect. But particularly, I would draw noble lords' attentions to the two speeches that we heard during earlier debates from Lord Stevens of Birmingham, and about the relationship between the structure of this bill and the National Health Service. It will not work as it is presently structured. I believe we have to go back to thinking about an assisted dying service, if we wish there to be one, which operates independently from the NHS, but of course with the participation of all of those willing clinicians and others who are needed professionally to support it. But it will not work if it is put into the structure of the NHS as we presently have it. So I hope we, if the sponsors of the bill
My grandfather would double fry the chip. Oh yeah, double fry, double dip. We call that double dip chips. You can triple dip them as well. But I used to do that in the restaurant when I used to cook the chips. Bring them up, rest them, put them on the side, and then like super hot oil, and you double dip, and they blister. Makes really good chips, double dip chips.
But at least give.
And then my dad used to do a thing called scallops, right? And I'll turn this guy down. Right? And scallops is chips or fries, but you cut them like almost like what we have crisps, or like you would have a bag of fries, but they're a little bit thicker, and essentially they're fried potatoes
I put
like
down
that.
one amendment. And
I used to
didn't
love
speak.
scallops, and again you double dip them.
I don't like the bill, everyone knows that. but I was working and trying very hard to get it to third
I
reading.
don't like the bit.
And I'm grateful
No.
to the noble and learned
No, I
lord
don't want some
for
man putting me to
recognising that.
sleep. Thank you very
But what I
much.
did want to say to your lordships is something about the future. It's inevitable there will be another bill.
Oh, good God.
And can I implore that the other house, assisted by us, has pre-legislative scrutiny? Because if we have pre-legislative scrutiny, we really should be putting it through this house.
Can I rise to speak? I'm one of the newbies that Lord Carlisle referred to, although I have not spent time in government. I actually spent a lot of time in local government and a brief time in the European Parliament. Noble Lords would note that I've only spoken twice during the debate. One substantial speech that I made at the start, and then one intervention. And I've sat through the many Fridays that we've had, and I want to pay tribute to Lord Markham's speech earlier, moving and personal. And I was with some friends last night who asked me if I was going back home to Sheffield or was I staying, and I said, I'm going to stay, and I'm going to listen. I don't have a pre-prepared speech. I'm going to speak from the heart. And I have to say that there has been occasions during the deliberations here that actually...
Doesn't he? I think I found you on Discord. Picture of a pie, mate.
Whether it's prisoners. And I have to say that Lord Faulkner and others that are sponsoring this...
Yeah, you'll find him. If you're in the Dome Discord, you'll probably find him there.
Just because we have, like I have, 10 minutes today, doesn't mean I need to take 10 minutes to get to the point. Yeah. And I think noble lords need to reflect on that the points that you need to make, if we were to make them quicker, then we may well have got through the many more topics. And I pay tribute to Lord Carlisle in his efforts trying to narrow the debate into the topics, and I thought we had a way forward. Because I have to say, my lords, that on Wednesday when I was making my way to the Public Services Committee, and due to the tube strike, I set out 1.5 hours earlier, not realising the tubes were still running. I got... so I was here an hour and 15 before because the Jubilee line was still running. There were many people outside Parliament, deeply frustrated by what is happening in your Lordship's house. And I have to say that there are issues of confidence and trust, and our reputation is at stake. And, you know, what our duties are here to revise and scrutinise legislation.
We would have potatoes in every meal. Yeah, well, that's like UK, innit? Meat and 2 veg, and usually one of the veg is potatoes.
And I've made it very
potatoes, carrots, potatoes, cabbage.
On this topic, that this is not something that I would like to exercise, nor will any member of my family.
Nothing nicer than sorry, the Scottish called potatoes neeps. Sorry, they call them tatties. So nips and tatties.
But I don't intend to block.
So it is potato and swede mashed.
Both Lord Faulkner here.
Lovely, mashed with gravy and haggis. I have like a vegetarian haggis because I'm not keen on the meat stuff, but it tastes the same. Oh my god, it's a hell of a meal. Neeps, tatties and haggis. You ever had that, John Boy? You ever had neeps, tatties and haggis?
And as Baroness Butlerslaw said earlier,
looks like he's fallen asleep. Oh, yeah, he has fallen asleep. No, he's blinked. He's still there. He's just listening.
As I see it, this is half time for this issue.
How rude on your phone, madam. Doom scrolling, probably.
I really hope that all noble lords from both sides of the argument reflect on how we have conducted ourselves on the many Fridays and how we can improve how we operate and the public perception with it. And with that, I'll stand down after 3 minutes, my lords.
My lord.
Prentice.
One of the members of your Lordship's Select Committee like Lord Markham. We came from different perspectives on the bill. As noble lords know, I am not in favour of the.
Yeah, it's like a mince and tatties. Yeah,
however,
but it's like it's got like herbs and spices in the mince meat.
The role of your
oh, good morning. I'm hungry. Howdy, Brad, coming from the North Pole.
and to
Are you,
amend
Brad?
legislation. And I have at no point sought to delay.
Oh, you must be getting up ready to go to work,
because
aren't you?
I think it is crucial that we send a message to the other house.
Yeah,
and
that's
if
what a haggis.
views
The old haggises are.
prevailed,
Modern
my
haggises, they
preference
just
would have
use
been
like a little
to say we
liner,
don't
plastic
want this
liner or something.
legislation at
But
all.
an original haggis uses
That
the
doesn't appear to be
lining
the
stomach
will
of
your
a
lordship's
sheep
house, and the
to
view
like
of the
turn it into a
country
little bowl or a
seems to
bag.
be a general preference
And then they boil
for
it.
legislation on assisted
I've never had
dying.
that, but
as
I've had like
legislators, as I
similar
said at second
tasting
reading,
stuff.
we're not legislating for ourselves or our own preferences. We must be legislating
Repost this
for
to
the
my
most
channel. Yeah, you can do
vulnerable
that.
in society. I am in a different position from many noble lords because the sponsor of the bill, the noble Lord Faulkner, did actually agree with one of my proposals on the 16th of January and has tabled 3 amendments, 330A, 357A and 387A, about allowing or indeed requiring a doctor to ask somebody why they want an assisted death. My lords, if this legislation stops today, I would like very much to ask the noble lord and anyone in the other place who might be minded to sponsor a similar bill in the next
Did you
session
hear what she
to
said
do
then?
as the noble
Anyone
lord
in the
Lord
other
Ramsay
place.
said,
That's what they call the House of Commons in the House of Lords. They don't call it the House of Commons. They call it the other place.
some of the safeguards
It's one of
that
like
noble
the.
lord has actually
It's a bit like
indicated that he would
how they never mention the.
For intervening
When they're doing a stage play, they go that
completely
play
agree
when
with
they
what you
talk
said, and the
about.
way
Is it
that
Othello or is it?
would be the bill would come back from the
Oh, what's the other
Commons,
one?
and we
It's
would
one of the
agree
Shakespeare's
here
play. They're never allowed
put
to
in
mention
those
it
amendments,
by name.
which I put in as a result of the power of her speeches, and then we'd send it back to the Commons where it would be agreed, and not let it get.
See, you're not supposed to say the Commons. You're supposed to say the other place.
Lords, my lords. Lords,
cross benches first, then come over.
Oh, so
This is a private member's bill.
it does get them going,
There was
doesn't
no
it? This one,
manifesto commitment
the
to it,
old.
Nor was it in the King's speech. It is.
Speak up, lady. We can't hear you.
Order.
Oh, she give that look.
I'm sorry, the noble lord interrupts me. I'm not going to give way. Excuse me. My lords, it is our duty as the Constitution Committee.
I
of the
shan't give way.
Lords
I am talking.
To scrutinise, to approve, to amend or reject any bill. Constitutionally, we are under no duty to pass a bill simply because the other place did so. No constitutional crisis will ensure when this bill fails, as it probably will today. A majority
Fucking hell, so the House of Lords have scuppered the suicide bill, essentially.
Government ministers have told the House that the
Jesus,
government
let
isn't
people
responsible
decide for themselves.
for
Let people.
ensuring that
You're supposed to be
safety is
democratic.
considered and provided for in legislation. That is a matter for the noble learned lord, and ultimately it is a duty of this House to scrutinise draft legislation to ensure that what we pass is safe. Yet what has happened is that the noble and learned lord has made multiple commitments to table amendments, etc., to remedy problems, but hasn't done so. Indeed, some of the amendments which he has tabled have reduced the safeguards contained in the bill, such as those inserted by Daniel Francis MP and Jess Asato MP, which relate to people with learning disabilities and domestic abuse. We know that it has been said that MPs expected this House to scrutinise the bill and improve it. Now it has been reported in Parliament News that new data has emerged suggesting that the initial support for the bill was not an endorsement of its specific mechanics, but rather a tentative nod towards a concept that many MPs believe is now fundamentally unsafe. Now only 40% would vote for the bill, while 45% would not. There was, as been said, no.
So how is Brad this morning, sir?
No impact assessment, proper impact assessment.
Good
before the
morning,
bill was
hungry.
introduced, and the result was widespread
We're not
concern,
hungry.
not least among the
So
professional
if Brad wants to know what we're watching the House of Lords, and they're
Lord
talking
Select
about
Committee, which
assisted
took
dying.
evidence
for terminally ill people. Very heavy stuff, but it's something that I've followed this most of my life, and they still haven't got it. They've been doing it for 40 years. This bill. They said earlier it's been into the House of Lords 11 times, and these old fuckers never pass it because essentially some fucker's going to come along with a needle and inject them all. Right, you're old, you're in a wheelchair, you can have it. This one in the blue dress be the first one I got rid of. This one in the green dress second. This one in whatever she's wearing next.
But because it was so deficient at the time it came to your lordship's house, much
seems like a slippery slope.
At least 244 peers have been directly involved.
Oh, that's a good question. No, this would be done by the NHS. I would have thought so. I don't think they'd have private companies doing that. Technically, like they did mention earlier that technically we already sort of do it in the UK, and they've done it for years. When it gets to the point where you're so ill, they put you on what's called a morphine driver, and essentially what the morphine driver does, it puts you into a coma, and then they just don't feed and water you for the next 5 or 6 days, 7, 8 days it takes, and after that then, you know, because you're not getting water or food, you die of dehydration, more or less, your heart stops. They've been doing that in hospitals forever, more or less, which is, in a way, it's assisted dying. It's like, you know, when there's nothing else left they can do, that's the least, the kindest thing they can do then, without actually giving you an injection and killing you straight away.
In whole or in part, that this is a
so it just speeds up that process.
Is it to the noble Baroness's position that we have completed our scrutiny at committee stage of all clauses beyond...
People are taking a milk. They meant to be coming around between 10 to 12, making me wait.
Those clauses, but the idea...
Taking the piss, you mean?
Completed our scrutiny is really nonsense.
My lords, to be accused of nonsense is slightly unsettling.
I've seen one lady in Canada says she wanted to do it because she can't afford to live. Yeah, well, they're making safeguards in Britain against stuff like that, against crazy people just wanting it for no reason. This is only for terminally ill people.
By doctors with fatal drugs to kill themselves, and where those patients cannot self-administer.
So you've got to be diagnosed by a doctor. You're terminally ill. You could be dead in 6 months, 8 months, maybe 2 years, 3 years. And then they'll go through a plan. They're doing it a lot more intelligently than the Canadian Parliament threw up. Oh, shit. I just hit my bloody thing.
What protection exists for those who may be subject to coercion,
what the hell have I brought up here?
Which will not be identified because of virtual assessments. For example, where the assessing doctor is not in the room with the patient or has no way of knowing who else is there and what is going on. These things had to be identified and discussed, and amendments tabled to address them. In the course of our debates and through the submission of evidence to the committee, we have identified multiple other serious problems, many of which there was no engagement by the sponsor, as the noble Baroness Holland said. Following clearly argued criticisms, the noble lord has accepted a long number of problems with the bill. However,
but Dusty, she could do that, couldn't she? Just by like manual means, anyway. You know, we've all got the ability to sort of do that, haven't we?
Must expressly include bodies corporate to uncover institutional or organisational abuse. Think, my lord.
I think the big problem comes is when you start like getting like people who are mentally ill and start just like offing them. I think that's where the big issues start to come in.
Such as explicit domestic abuse training or the mandatory independent advocate presence under the guise of tidying up the bill. Often these would save the government money. The government's impact assessment reveals that it almost halves the cost of the assisted dying process if independent advocates or translators do not have to be present. There was provision for independent advocates to assist those who have substantial difficulty understanding the process.
Under the Noble and Learned Lord's amendments, the advocate doesn't have to be physically present during medical assessments, and a person is allowed to entirely waive their right to an advocate. It's perhaps paradoxical and dangerous to expect that someone who qualifies for an advocate precisely because they struggle to understand information to independently decide, to waive that very protection at the outset. The advocate is introduced only after key clinical and eligibility assessments have been completed, rendering them a box-ticking process. My Lords, think of the over 100 languages spoken in England and Wales, and of the problems of peoples with hearing difficulties articulated by the noble...
100 languages, yeah. There's supposed to be like 3 or 4. Welsh, Cornish, Gaelic, English, not a fucking 100 languages. They're imported, they are, the rest of them.
Let us be very clear. As is appropriate, our debate...
John Boy, I have stopped the live on my account, I know. Were you still live then, John? I didn't realise. Yeah, I don't know shit. I just know that story made me mad.
Who did not join their professions to kill people and who need protection against involvement.
But sometimes these things are like clickbaity, aren't they? And some people like put clickbait out.
We know they are inadequate. The BMA and the Royal College has asked for an explicit opt-in model, rebuffed multiple times in the Commons. Finally, the Noble and Learned Lord acknowledged the concern, but his Amendment 669A introduces only a requirement for opt-in for training and not opt-in for assisted dying as a whole. The bill provides some protection for professionals, but not for all the other people who enable our NHS to work, the administrators, the porters, the cleaners. The current option of going to an employment tribunal if facing disciplinary action in the context of an unwillingness to engage in any way in assisted dying is just not satisfactory. People need their jobs to pay their rent or mortgage, to feed their children. A system-wide opt-in model is the only way to protect staff from institutional pressure. Yet the Noble and Learned Lord drew the line at protecting administrative staff to ensure that the NHS runs properly. My Lords, too many issues which should be debated fully in this House are to be left to secondary legislation, where Parliament can only accept or reject, but not amend. For example, the approval of lethal drugs, the provision of assisted suicide services in England and Wales, something the DPRRC has said should be removed. My Lords, we talk of democracy, yet there's nothing democratic about handing sweeping powers to ministers rather than to Parliament. My Lords, there are those like me who believe that all life is sacred and to be protected from conception to natural death. That is not and has not been.
Yeah, they know how to talk. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
As legislators, some with a religious faith, some with humanist beliefs.
I'll turn this down a bit. There was this thing the other day that a lot of the X posts are done by AI. It's like this guy, like this young 16, 17-year-old guy, was made a huge amount of money, right? He did this thing where he had this like shorts of a Republican woman, and he even did her on OnlyFans, and she was all AI, and he made millions off it. That's crazy. You've got to be really careful. And some of them, they're owned by people from India and stuff like that. They're not even who you think they are.
Private and funding and
I'll have to try and find the thing now.
For hospitals and funding for the NHS. Yes, I'm coming to an end. I'm coming to an end.
Can I just say that we're over 11 minutes and it's supposed to be 10 minutes. Bring the comments to an end.
Bring my comments to an end. We have tabled amendments to provide some protection for the vulnerable, the weak, the poor, the disabled, the sick.
I'm trying to find that thing because this is going to end soon, so I'll just I'll show that to Dustin.
Many of us have concluded that this bill is not safe, and so we have worked to try and make it safer. As I conclude, I would like to pay tribute to those living with serious illness and disabilities, and people like Pete and George, who have attended every day of our debates and who sit behind me, and to all those...
Order. Can you please bring your remarks to an end now? It's nearly 12 minutes, and these are the people who want to speak.
The 12 minutes include the interruptions which I've suffered. But to all those who have written to encourage us as we fulfil our duties as legislators in your Lordship's House, scrutinising this flawed
She's got another
and
page.
dangerous bill.
Oh, there we are.
My Lord said that.
My Lords, I regret that I have not been here this winter during the discussions on this bill, but watching it on television has been a key part of the rhythm of the weeks I've spent at home. During my chemo-induced cognitive dysfunction, the plot of Midsummer Murders was often beyond me, and the steroid frenzy I felt meant that I often couldn't settle to a book. But during 13 bouts of chemo and an operation, I kept returning Friday after Friday to this debate. Why, you ask yourselves? It may be because as a government lawyer, the Constitution is in me like, the writing in a stick of rock. But it is also, of course, that as your
Yeah, I don't fall for that shit. My mum gets fooled all the time. Well, this one apparently had millions of Americans fooled by it. It's like some girl ice fishing and stuff like that, and apparently it went everywhere. And she had her own OnlyFans. And he was basically producing AI naked images of her. And the guys reckon he was just like, oh, here we go, I've got it here. Okay, we will follow this in a minute.
Calm, quiet scrutiny of legislation. Far from few voices, which some have said were heard, I frequently had to consult the booklet to see
so
who it
I'll
was
put this
that
on
was speaking.
in a bit.
I saw the former heads of royal colleges explain why no royal college can support this bill. I saw lawyers
This is finishing up soon, I think.
that coroners are not able to feel
Let
that there
me
are
just check
sufficient
whether
safeguards in this bill. I saw former NHS
10:07.
managers worried about
Shit,
the
it's gone
effects
way
on
over.
the service and the staff that they care for so deeply. I saw experts on devolution get into the details. I was impressed by the deep experience of bishops, often speaking from their time as parish priests, when they frankly have held more hands of the dying than the rest of us
Don's isn't
put
he? Is it?
together.
Hey, Ballio, Don. Sorry, didn't see you come in, mate.
As I watched from the coalface of trying not to die, I felt huge sympathy for the very ill people who think that this bill might be the answer to their
How the
problems.
hell do I get out of this bloody thing?
Illness leaves you with few
I'm stuck on
options
here now.
and little control. The system can seem unyielding and as a result uncaring. This, in my experience, is worse than pain. Of course you are exhausted, miserable and sick. You look awful, you're often smelly, and some symptoms are frankly revolting. Of course you worry about your family watching you go through all this, and you worry very deeply about what it's doing to them. Even with my excellent care, good prognosis, I have definitely at times felt death would be much easier. Whenever my treatment has not
Well, she got round her neck. They look like little mice.
because of capacity issues, and I'm currently waiting longer than I want to, frankly, for radiotherapy, which is due to start the week after next, or when I've been waiting literally on the floor, having fainted, of a less than perfectly clean NHS corridor, I get a vision in my head. I've had a vision in my head of crisp white sheets and certainty that would come from knowing you were instantly going to die. For me, and I suspect
Currently in
for most
Neves,
vulnerable
we are
people,
competing in a
that
race
vision
with our
passes
homemade
and
e-cart.
life
Oh,
becomes
like the
worth
Red Bull
living
e-cart
and
thing.
good
Oh, I hope it goes
again.
well, mate.
But I don't think we
Oh,
should
you've got to send
deny
us
for 1
videos,
minute
Discord
that that
videos.
is
Mr. Rotella will love
an
that.
attractive one.
I love watching
My
those
lords,
Red Bull
we owe
kart
the dying
racings.
better
They're funny
than
as
this
fuck,
bill.
man.
We owe them the best deaths we can
Don't get
manage.
hurt.
Real effort and enthusiasm.
Some of
put
them
into
are crazy.
palliative care. And all facilities,
I'll have to watch a bit of that in a
including
minute.
temporary nursing where necessary, to help people die at home, surrounded by their families. We need to really integrate physical and mental care and not just talk about it. We owe the dying love, care and respect. And we hope that crisp white sheets and some control over treatment deaths maybe become part of the normal system of palliative care and not just reserved for people who engineer some form of assisted dying. We owe the vulnerable legislative protection.
Yeah.
Lords, it's an absolute privilege to follow the very moving.
I'm going to pause it here in a minute because I want to, if I can get out of this. Hold on, how do I get out of this? Escape. How do I get out of this? Exit full screen. There we go. I want to just paste this in. Show Dustin. Well, it's also, so this will be good for all of you. Have a little look at this a minute. So what was it? I found the thing. I'm close to it here. 1 minute 02, 1 hour 102. That's pretty close there. So I want to watch this for a minute. So this is the Lotus Eaters. I watch them every day. They'll be on in about an hour. So just before I finish, after I finish, they'll be on. But
artificial intelligence generated fake influencers.
This is why we did the live event, by the way. So people wouldn't know we were using holograms the whole time. Sorry.
That's right. It's very impressive. Thankfully, nobody went to shake my hand.
Yeah.
Straight.
I'll go to full screen so you can see this a bit better.
You can see the New York Times has done a report on all of this, but there's a lot more information that we can go through as well that backs all of this up.
So you wouldn't know, would you? No.
With some of these, when you've got phone artifacting in the video, and then you've got like interference from streaming it as well, a lot of this in still images, when you actually see the videos in motion, you can tell because there's the weird smoothing and the weird lack of blemishes.
So we're going on here about
but if you just look
all
at the
these
images,
fake
you would look at this and go like,
influencers
this kind of looks
that don't
like
actually
a real
exist.
guy.
That guy down there in the bottom with the glasses.
Yeah.
This one's making me laugh.
It helps when you
believable.
When you keep the backgrounds as simple as possible, it means that the system that you're using doesn't have to waste resources on it, so it'll make the person look better.
Yeah.
This guy, he
Right.
himself looks all right, but you can see from the background that's a very
Princes.
I'm just forwarding it on to this particular one.
This is one of the more bizarre ones, and there's a larger story attached to it. This one, a MAGA influencer who racked up millions of followers with patriotic content of her posing in a bikini whilst ice fishing. Again, this looks kind of real until you think, like, what a bizarre position to find yourself in. But again, I'm not American, so I don't know how common this kind of thing is. She has been revealed to be an Indian man who put himself through med school on the proceeds of his trickery. And there is
Who among us would do any different?
Exactly. There's a larger article from the New York Post about this. Now, they've called him Sam, not his actual name. Here's some more of the content that he was posting on social media. Obviously. Not a real person. This is
probably made loads of money.
This is he did make a lot of money, and there's more information here that I'll go through.
This is on the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's true.
But who was looking at that?
Yeah, good point. Sam, 22-year-old orthopedic surgeon in training, told Wired that he got the idea
Makes it more likely to be a bronze flag.
of a young woman in a bikini while scrounging for money in school and trying to save up enough to emigrate to the US after graduation.
He's not real,
So
guys.
This man is coming to your shores, folks.
I like that. I need to grift as hard as I can to escape India.
I mean, which of us wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly. Who among us?
He turned to
I am
Google's
100%
Gemini AI for
AI
advice and
generated.
decided to create a hot girl crafted specifically for the MAGA conservative niche after the software told him that the conservative audience often has higher disposable income and is more loyal
I
because
love
it's older
how
men.
strategic this is.
Yep.
I could very easily grift the they/them pronouns group by saying, trans women and stuff like that, but they haven't got any goddamn money.
That's true.
Well, there's another reason here as well that they named, and that's how. But just carrying on this. So this was supposedly Emily Hart.
Ah, yeah.
According to her profile, she was a registered nurse with Jennifer Lawrence looks who offered red meat posts to lonely conservative men online. One post showed her firing a rifle with the caption, "If you wanted a reason to unfollow, Christ is king, abortion is murder, and all illegals must be deported." Prime
I won't follow that.
Of red meat.
That's
Yeah,
cool, red meat.
Yeah, of course. Sam told the magazine, "Every day I'd write something pro-Christian, pro-Second Amendment, pro-life, anti-abortion, anti-woke, and anti-immigration." The account blew up, and within a month, he had 10,000 followers. Every reel he posted got millions of views and earned him more followers, and then he cashed in on the AI model's appeal, selling MAGA-themed T-shirts and creating an account, right, on the OnlyFans competitor, FanView, where paid subscribers could access
that's another thing. They covered that as well.
AI-generated content, exactly what you want from your...
I'll pause it. Yeah, they covered that. There's apparently, isn't it? There's was it Dom Lucre poster of memes or something on X, and he was moaning because X is changing their rules about reposting, about getting paid on other people's reposts, and that's all he does. And he's made he makes like a minimum like £50,000 a month just repost. Doesn't do any work, just reposts other people's stuff on X. And because he's a bigger name, he gets the the big thing, just reposting stuff on X.
Pro-Christian, conservative, MAGA base.
This Dom Lucre guy was all upset about it. Oh my God, I've put on so much effort. And people are like, what do you mean put so much effort? Everyone else has done the work. You just copy and plagiarise it.
This man is a genius. I want nothing against Sam here.
He's welcome to come over. Elon, give this man a job at X right now.
He's probably a millionaire.
He probably is.
He's probably worth more than all of us combined.
It says here, FanView, the OnlyFans thing, differentiated itself by allowing AI-generated content. So that's why he was able to post all that. The move made him a mint. He was raking in thousands of dollars a month.
Yeah, So, Dusty, I can do ads now on my Rumble, but I don't use any of it. Like, I can't do the coffee ad because I've never tasted their coffee. I can't do the crypto ad because I've never had crypto. I can't do, the steaks ad because I don't eat red meat. It's like, what can I advertise on Rumble that I actually know of? Crazy, isn't it? It's like, you can only really advertise if they send you an example of it, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe Rumble, maybe I might get a Rumble wallet. I don't know. It's, I don't know, the old thing bubble. I mean, I could join in, as long as I don't put loads of money in it. If that tech bubble bursts, then I haven't lost much. But would I use the Rumble wallet? I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, let's carry on with Sam, the greatest troll of the 21st century. Yeah?
He used Grok AI to generate nude photos of this supposedly Christian, Christ is King, conservative girl, and uploaded them to FanView, where fans sent him money for exclusive content and messages.
It's genius. I don't know what everyone's complaining about.
He says, I was basically doing nothing and was just flooded with money.
Doing nothing and flooded with money.
Okay.
Fucking genius.
At this point, I'd like to revisit the conversation about the Labour theory of value. Right? I really want to
Right, so that's more or less it, guys. So let's move along. Let's can we get that back out of there? Boomf. Let's go back to our live. Is this still going?
Speech of the noble Lady Prentice. And I think perhaps the one good thing I'll say about the last year that has been a real revelation and something which I respect enormously is the number of people who have shared their experiences of death, of dying, of illness, and their views about the best way forward. No one can pretend there is unanimity on this issue, and we have to respect all those views and listen to them. My lords, I was a member of the Select Committee on Joel Joffe's bill on assisted dying 20 years ago. The experience of being a member of that Select Committee, the visits that we made, the evidence that we heard, convinced me that it was possible to frame legislation that safeguarded against coercion and did not compromise, but actually complemented palliative care. And it, for me, gave the argument, and the noble Lord Markham spoke about this, for regulation. So I was surprised to hear the noble Lady O'Loan describe what could go so badly wrong in an unregulated system, shipment, coercion, no one knowing what happens. And I simply do not accept that a tightly regulated bill with the sorts of safeguards that are in this bill is better, it is not better than a wholly unregulated system that we have at the moment.
Yeah.
The visit to Oregon, in particular, on that select committee, made me very aware of another issue, that having legislation for assisted dying would only directly affect a small number of people who took up that option. And that of the number of people who investigated the option, the number of people who actually in that system you got a prescription, took a prescription but never used it, found that they could cope with the situation in which they found themselves. It's about 30%, I understand, across jurisdictions. But the very existence of legislation, the very existence of a system that they knew if in the end things became intolerable, they could access, gave huge reassurance for the hundreds of people who would die through assisted dying legislation. There are thousands who would feel more secure, who would be reassured by the fact that there was an option. And I put myself absolutely in that category, and I suspect many others in the House would do so too.
Yeah,
I have participated. Noble Lord Baker is in his place. I've gone to head with the Noble Baroness Finlay, on all those debates as well, and I have participated in all of them. So, my lords, I have been disappointed before. I have seen
we shan't talk about that, lady.
But nothing.
Let's just keep to the assisted dying bill now.
Faulkner despondent in quite the way that the process we have gone through in the last year has done. So I think it is important that we reflect in today's proceedings, because they should be a reflection on what I consider to be a collective failure. I think we have failed those people who came to us with their experiences, either through families or their own experience, of the inability of palliative care, however good, to meet what they actually need at the end of life. I think we have failed those repeated campaigners who knew that the legislation would be too late for them, but didn't want others to go through what they have gone through. I think we have failed to respect the consistent weight of public opinion on this issue, that we ought to have a different, a regulated and a safe system. And I think, my lords, that we have failed to respect the elected House's request to us to do the job.
I don't think I've ever met anyone that's against it.
So clearly by the noble Lord
like
Lansing.
in real person.
So I think we do have to reflect, because I think all those failures have damaged the reputation of this House. And they have damaged what many of us have respected and felt to be very much part of the House's DNA, self-regulation.
I'm going to go and grab a coffee back in a bit. I'll leave this playing. I've got my headphones on.
We have not fulfilled our duty to use our procedures on a bill that has come, passed by the House of Commons, to focus either on the issue of principle, by a vote at second or third reading, or on specific detail, where we need to calibrate the strength of opinion in this House, i.e. to vote, and send our conclusions to the Commons for their response. Instead, we have had a prolonged and painful process described by the noble Lord Faulkner. Protracted, repetitive debate, which ironically have led to us failing to properly address issues such as the issues about the Delegated Powers Committee, which we do have to take seriously. But I find it disingenuous that the amendment says that we haven't taken proper account of it, when the reason we haven't been able to is because we haven't got to that bit of the bill yet, because we spent so much time on other bits of the bill. My Lords, I just say one thing. There has been criticism of the noble Lord Faulkner about not moving enough. I think he described the processes that he's been through. I've been present at many of those meetings, and attempts have been made to find a serious process to identify the issues that are most important, to try and reach either consensus on them or to reach a point when we can vote on them and decide what we want to tell the other place. But instead, we have spent hours focusing, as it was put to me by a very brave woman dying of stage 4 breast cancer. She said, "I've listened to you, and what you have been doing is focusing all the time on hypothetical harms, some of them bizarre, the pregnancy test for everybody, those sorts of issues. And what you have done is ignored the actual and profound suffering that is before your eyes." That is a serious accusation to us, my lords. Of course, as legislators, we have a responsibility to scrutinise legislation.
And it was 100% accurate
like
as well.
For safety.
Fucking worrying
And
about
we have a
stupid hypotheticals all the time.
To have full debate and to reach conclusions.
Yeah.
My lords, we have not discharged that responsibility, and that is something that I think all of us should reflect very seriously about.
I need to adjust that camera.
My lords, my mother-in-law died from motor neuron disease a couple of years ago. She was a primary school headmistress, and she took firm control of her life throughout her life. 3 weeks before she died, she called a multidisciplinary team meeting of all of the various clinicians, including the palliative care team and her family, to express her wishes very, very clearly. She had reached the point where she could not move other than her face. She couldn't breathe without a CPAP mask for more than a few minutes, and life was intolerable. And she told us that she intended to die in 3 weeks' time. That was an assisted death to the layman. It was completely legal. She simply, because she could still speak, 3 weeks later, she told her nurse to take her mask off, and she asked the nurse to give her a sedative. And she passed away completely peacefully. That has completely shaped my view. And as my noble friend Lord Markham set out so much more eloquently than I, and has done throughout the course of this bill, we have an unregulated system which is scary and unfair.
Grumble, grumble, grumble.
So I'm in favour of this bill. This is the first time I've spoken in it, because I'm afraid I took the view at the very beginning that as I am not a clinician, a theologian or an ethicist, I wasn't going to do a particularly good job at improving it, and I was really concerned that people would try and talk it out, and I didn't want to be part of the talking it out. So that's why it's not that I haven't followed it, I've sat here on the occasional Friday.
We don't
I've
care,
read and
lady.
I've listened.
We don't care
But
what you
I
think. What you think?
felt from the
What
very
you're
beginning
feeling?
that there are
Just
members
what have you
of
got
your
to add
Lordship's
to
House
this?
who care deeply about the
Jesus.
subject and believe completely in their view, and who are
Fucking
going to
me,
use
myself,
process
and
to
I,
kill the
woman.
bill.
Jeepers.
And I'm afraid, I'm really sad to say, I think that's exactly where we are. And I feel sad that I've failed.
Again, I feel this, I feel
contacted
that.
me and asked me to help them because I've remained silent throughout the whole process, which is why I'm speaking today, although I fear
Oh
I'm
my
now
God, me,
repeating
myself,
what
and
others
I.
have said.
Jesus, girl,
But
lose
I'm
your ego.
also,
Fuck's
as the
sake.
noble lady
It's not
Baroness
about you.
Hayman has just said, incredibly sad about what it says about this House. I also care deeply about the role this House plays in our democracy. We may not have individually been democratically elected, but we play a very important
Yeah,
part in the
otherwise, get the
democratic
fuck out of here.
process.
Don't.
And
None of these are
today,
democratically
I am more and more
elected.
concerned about the fact that we have not done that most
And
fundamental
yet they've got more power
democratic
than the
thing, which
Commons.
is vote. And I worry that we are not settled as a community here, my lords, that we have unfinished business, not for many more hours of debate, because I think we are kidding ourselves if we think anyone is changing their view as a result of our hours of debate, but in order to settle what our actual conclusions are, as the noble lady Baroness Hayman has said. I know that I will upset a number of friends on my benches, but I've been sitting here thinking, has all this debate really been designed to make the bill safer, or has it just been designed to talk it out? One of the things when you join this House, as I did from business, that surprises you about the processes of this great place is how short you're expected to speak for. In business, no one gives a 3-minute speech. The idea that
Hey, it's long enough to say what you need to say, love.
Speech here should be,
If you
as I
spent
was
7
guided,
minutes
no
talking
more than
about
5
self,
to 6
you,
minutes.
I, how I
Better if you
feel,
can make it
clutch my
4.
pearls, then
It's
you can get it
anathema
done
to
in 3
people
minutes.
outside of Parliament. But when you look and see, we know, I've been here far too long now, I think it's normal. And I've learnt, actually, it's an important part of our process. You can distill the important parts of an argument into a 3 to 6 minute speech.
Oh, okay, she does agree.
You can make
Yes, you can. Of course you
important
can.
decisions in 17 days of debate.
17 days they've been debating
and we do,
this.
My lords, and
Holy
that's an
shit.
important part of our democratic
We've
process.
been here for
and we have
fucking
not
2
done that.
hours and it's already fucking me
10
off.
noble lords have accounted for 26% of the time. Most of them have spoken for more than 2 hours, well beyond the 4.5 minutes, and I promise I will speak for no more than 5. And so I am embarrassed by our role, not because people hold very different views. That's important that they do.
She's sort of,
but
well,
because
no,
it
she's
fails,
actually on.
as my noble
Well,
friend Lord Lansing
technically,
said,
I'm on
to
her
bring to a
side.
vote,
It's just I wish she
either in
would
principle
fucking.
or in detail.
She's on
And
about
I would
shortening
just say
it,
we
and yet
do
she's
have
doing the.
unfinished business, my lords. People across the country, whatever their view,
Just keep it
think we have
short,
not
keep
done
it
our
simple,
job.
keep it memorable.
Too right polling shows the public want a safe assisted dying bill, and for Lords to do its job.
Bullet points
We
it, innit?
haven't.
We've all got AI now. You just go, this is my speech, type it into AI, copy paste. Can you give me it in bullet points, please? Bum, 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 bum. Things like that, AI is great for doing.
Well, folk,
It's not creating something, it's
As
just
an
reorganising
unelected
something that's already there.
I think it's very important that we focus on what the public thinks. And over the last few months, we've heard opponents of the bill suggesting that it
What
lacks
is going on
public
there?
support.
What's going on with this one?
And I want to correct the record on this. The most recent social attitudes survey, which is, by the way, the highly regarded Bible that tracks longitudinal public attitudes, published in March, shows an overwhelming 8 out of 10 of us supporting changing the law to enable assisted dying. This powerful evidence is consistent across respected published polling. It's consistent across age, across gender, across region.
Well, see, in the
across
democracy, if
political
it's 8 out of
attitudes.
10 people, that's 80%.
It's
Well,
also
democracy
consistent
says
amongst
the
those with
majority
disabilities,
should carry through.
those who profess a religion, and those who work in the medical professions. Data modelling by the polling organisation More in Common reveals that support far outweighs opposition in every constituency in Britain. But don't take my word for this. Polling guru Professor Sir John Curtis observed recently that the picture of public support for assisted dying was, and I'm quoting, one of remarkable stability and near consensus in public attitudes, while another very senior and highly respected pollster, Peter Kellner, says, and again I quote, "Having reported, conducted and commissioned polls for half a century, I cannot think of a major social controversy where the public mood has been so settled and so emphatic."
It's
Both
Dora.
pollsters, in my experience, place the very highest value on presenting an objective and truthful representation of people's views. And those views are not just widespread and consistently held in favour of assisted dying, they're also heartfelt. They're not theoretical, they're drawn from painful personal experience. And many of those stories here, briefly, so I will continue if you don't mind. Many of those stories have been told very movingly here today. The point is that 52% of us have cared for or witnessed a family member who was terminally ill and suffering at the end of their life. Unsurprisingly, experience of this rises with age. Up to 66% in the 50 to 64-year-old age group, and higher as you get beyond that. And research, for example, England's first ever citizens' jury, so more qualitative research, deliberative research, tells us that support for law change actually grows the more people understand the issue and the more they hear about the issue. Meanwhile, the backdrop to this debate is that trust in our democracy has never been lower. Too often, the public doesn't feel listened to. Confidence in this unelected chamber is at its lowest ever. A desultory 1 in 5 have confidence in the House of Lords to do its job. At the end of last year, YouGov found that just 2% had a lot of confidence in the House of Lords, and only 17% had some confidence. Some noble lords today have quoted a poll that suggests that the public would like to see us doing better scrutiny. Yes, in abstract, they absolutely would. But when we reference this particular bill, a YouGov poll recently found that 58% disagreed with the way the Lords has dismissed this bill, while only 17% found it acceptable. Again, public opposition rises, as you would expect, with greater experience by age, consistent with the lived experience of the impact and pain of the alternative. As this debate draws to its close, I think we should all be aware that the way this bill has been treated by this chamber risks having profound implications for the chamber itself and its reputation, as well as the absolute tragedy of ignoring the passionately held public view for assisted dying.
Well, is she a midget? Oh,
My lords, thank you. We'll hear from the crossbenchers.
Thank you.
So I think
Right,
the way
my
this
lord.
is set out, if you agree, you sit on
My
one
lord, thank
side
you.
with the
I'd
bill,
like to,
and if you
I'd first
don't,
of all
you're
like
on
to
the other
remind
side. That's why you've got
House
the
that,
cross
Harold
bench over
Shipman
here.
was a murderer convicted of 15 life sentences plus 4 years. He did not provide an assisted death, so I'd like that to be on the record. I stand here as a general practitioner of over 40 years' experience, and also, as I've said many times, President and Chair of the Royal College of GPs. Now, over these decades, I've had the privilege, though not always an easy one, to care for patients at the end of their lives. And for some, I have been present at the moment when life passes to death. It is an extraordinary moment, not as it is often portrayed as bleak or clinical or purely tragic, but something far different. When death is well supported, when it's anticipated, and when it's held by family and those who care, it can be a moment of stillness, of connection, and a sense of peace that feels unexpectedly profound. It is one of the most powerful experiences I have
Yeah,
ever
but what
had
happens if
as
you
a
just
doctor.
die at 3 o'clock in
And
the
in that
morning
moment,
and your
or in
family
those
aren't there? At
moments,
least
one
with
thing is
assisted
always
dying, you can have
clear.
your family there
The
while it
patient
happens
is at the centre.
to experience
Their
what she's
wishes,
on about.
Their relationships, their dignity,
all shape how that final phase of care unfolds, when it goes well. But that is not the whole truth. I've also cared for many patients whose deaths have not gone well. Patients who have refused treatments or who have starved themselves rather than ensure what lies ahead. Patients who sadly have ended their own lives, unable to bear the weight of their diagnosis. And patients whose illnesses have taken away from them the ability to make their own decisions, and whose deaths have been placed into the hands of others, families, clinicians, and the systems acting in their place. And this brings me, my Lord, to what I think is at the heart of this debate. The question sits simply, though uncomfortably, as whose death is it? And for decades, medicine has placed patient autonomy at the centre, bounded by capacity, consent, clinical judgment, protection from coercion. And we speak of choice, of dignity, of the individual's right to determine what happens to their own body. And we've actually built systems and laws and safeguards and languages all around that. And yet, at the moment when autonomy might matter most, the manner and timings of one's own death, it is withdrawn. At that point where a patient is dying, we say, not here, not you. And that, in my mind, is not just a tension, it is an inconsistency that demands reflection, which is what I've been doing.
She's just blabbering on now, isn't she?
And I say with respect that much of what I've heard in this House has strongly focused on risk, even today. But risk, my lords, is not an unfamiliar territory in medicine, it's our daily working environment. We do not eliminate uncertainty, we manage it. We make complex decisions every day about treatment, capacity and withdrawal of care under conditions of imperfect knowledge, guided by safeguards, judgment and professional accountability. And along this focus on risk, there's also been a tendency, again as I've heard today, to imagine worst-case scenarios and to construct arguments at their point of failure rather than their point of function, the what-if, and to build in increasing complexity to cover every possible scenario that might come up to manage these hypothetical fears.
That's a hell of a stroller she's got.
The 100 languages that are spoken. How do we manage learning disability? How do we manage people that are disabled? We do this every single day, a million times.
Contradiction in terms, an aerodynamic
Even the Chief
stroller.
Medical Officer, Sir Chris Whitty, warned in his oral evidence that we are layering layer upon layer of complex bureaucracy on top of one another. Expecting, and in my mind, expecting the dying patient to jump through endless hoops, be that see their GP 6 times in 6 months, or live in the same address for 12 months, have repeated assessments. My lords, we've heard some powerful testimonies here about relatives who have died. Can you imagine at the moment of their death, we're asking them to do repeated serial 7s, which is counting backwards from 100 in 7s, or to draw a clock face to assess capacity? Can you imagine that? Now let me take my own profession.
Actually, the clock face thing works because it does. It shows brain damage.
Receives a terminal diagnosis, that general practice fades away, that we retreat, or that care fragments. This is not my experience, nor that of many of my colleagues. When a patient enters their final phase of life, general practice leans in. We intensify care, we place patients on dedicated pathways, we ensure rapid access to benefits, and we maintain continuity with a named clinician, more likely than not a GP. We coordinate care with community teams, with palliative care specialists and families, and we ensure that we do our best to provide continuity in and out of hours. In other words, my lords, we organise ourselves around the patient. We do not move away. Instead, we gather more closely. Are there failures? Yes, of course. No system is without them. But at the end of life, clinicians across disciplines try, often beyond expectation, as I have, to keep the patient at the centre and to get it right. This bill is not a theoretical exercise. We've heard already. It's about real people in real distress at the most vulnerable point of their life. And again, with great respect, I felt that the individual who was dying, who's trying to make sense of what's happening to them, has been overshadowed by hypothetical abstractions and overly complex arguments. Again, to bring an example that I'm familiar with, take the example around the Royal College of GPs opt-in, opt-out, that even I got confused when it was debated. Now, my understanding, and backed up by my recent conversations with the Royal College, is that what they're saying is that the actual delivery of the assisted death should be voluntary. Okay, that moment when the person's in that place, wherever it is, or at their home. But GPs, like all health professionals, would continue to have a duty of care to support their patients, to ensure appropriate referral to relevant services, and to have a sufficient understanding to be able to advise their patient about choices. This is not unusual. This is what we do across medicine, whether we provide the interventions ourselves or not. I do not provide open heart surgery, but I have an understanding of the principles of open heart surgery. There's also been little acknowledgement of the jurisdiction.
You need a heart to start with.
In particular, I had the honour of chairing a contingent from Australia, where assisted dying is practised with regulations, safeguards and societal acceptance. These systems are not static.
Let's
they
go
evolve.
live.
Get pregnant.
Let's get past
this
it.
Was
we
not
missed
a debate
bit.
about gender recognition,
Oh,
nor
lady
about
in
the
wheelchair.
age of the individual. This is set out in NHS guidance. And it seems a shame that those who are willing to take umbrage with me don't appear to
Is it
listen
Tammy
to
Gray
what
Thompson?
I said in the chamber. My lords, what have we learned?
Oh, it is, I think.
We've learned
That's
being
Tammy Gray
pregnant or
Thompson.
homeless
She was
or
a
poor or
gold medal
disabled
athlete
should
in
not be a
wheelchair
barrier.
athlete.
And that's why the progress of this bill has been slow.
Olympic gold.
Because those comments have made people nervous. If you're homeless, poor or disabled, you do not have equal access to society. So it's not a level playing field to start off with, and you have significant disadvantage. And why are disabled people scared? My lords, a couple of weeks ago, recently in the English devolution bill, I had my name on an amendment that was simply to enact legislation that passed 30 years ago. This was to make sure that taxis were accessible for disabled people. There was a 3-line whip against me, and the vote was lost. Something as simple as making taxis accessible for disabled people.
Yeah, they've done very. I'm big on.
So why do disabled people have
like
little
we've got
trust
all
in
these
this bill?
things about fucking men being
it's
women
not just
and women
7 of
being,
us
and
that
that we've
oppose
done fuck
this
all
bill.
for disabled
There's
people
many that have
in this
spoken in
country.
debates. The noble and
like
learned
people
Lord
in
himself has
wheelchairs.
tabled
That we
76
should have
amendments.
accessibility
Now,
by
on the
law.
ranking list, he comes 5th
I know it's going to cost some businesses some money,
and to me
but there
that
can be
shows
support
that,
put in. But instead,
there
we'd
is
rather
not the
support
confidence that this bill is
gender
set.
ideologies.
I've
Waste
received many
of money.
emails, many of them asking, have I watched someone I love die? Yes, I have. I sat beside my father's bedside for weeks while he died slowly, having multiple amputations. I held his hand for the last 24 hours before he died. And I constantly think what I could have done differently.
Was it his amputated hand?
My father was instrumental in
Shouldn't
making
joke,
me
really,
the person I
shouldn't
am
joke.
for all my strengths and weaknesses. And I seriously questioned myself, if this bill had passed, would have it made his death better? And no, it wouldn't. It absolutely would not have. We talk about choice and free will, but there are many people who have no choice or free will, and this bill does not operate in a vacuum, and we cannot forget the significant amount of discrimination that many people face. I myself have experienced ableism within the health service, and the point my treatment changed, it's not when I became an expert patient, it's not when I argued for my rights, it's when they realised I'd had a red stripy badge and I sat in the House of Lords. My lords, we have to recognise the privilege that we have. I've had thousands of emails on this issue, 2 this morning, one from someone who's emailed me many times, who finds my cruelty unforgivable and is disgusted with me. Another was sent to Ms. Leadbeater, and I was copied in. The individual said, I am someone with no one, little in the way of family.
She's very
There'll
leftist,
be no one
though,
there
this
for me
woman.
when I die. I know that I'll be manipulated to not waste inheritance money on care homes and end my life for the sake of others. I've been hospital dozens of times in the last few years as my health declines. Each time I go by taxi. No one to look after me, not allowed sedation because there's no one at home to look after me for the following 24 hours. I don't think I'll be someone who lives a long life. It's embarrassing to admit when you have no family to care about you, who would look after you in old age or when you're ill, or to hold your hand in your last moments. So I
don't want
believe
no fucking
we
old
are the
no,
silent
what's this one?
majority. My lords, we've heard much debate today about the damage to your lordship's house, but I've had thousands of emails to say thank you for what we are doing here today to unpack the danger that this is in this bill. My lords, I am very clear on my role. It has not been pleasant to sit here to be targeted by so many people to say we are doing a bad job. But, my lords, our job is to protect everyone in British society. This bill does not do that.
My lords, I share the disappointment. I share the disappointment of so many. I share the disappointment of so many in this House that we have not.
Order.
I'll just start again, my lords. Thank you. This is a private member's bill, finally passed in the Commons with a shrinking majority of 26. I'm advising here, I've spoken to a number of Labour MPs since, and what is not known, perhaps possibly, is that there was considerable pressure from number 10 to pass the bill. It was known that the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, supported it, and indeed there were government party bill supporters standing at the entrance to the lobbies.
This guy is sleeping, look. He's had enough. I'll just catch a few winks, getting paid for doing that. They get paid on a daily basis for turning up. Don't forget, you get a yearly wage anyway. They don't even have to turn up, to be fair. But they'll get like so much money for each day they're there, plus expenses.
It has not had pre-legislative parliamentary scrutiny, as we've heard. Committee stage in the other place was chaired by its sponsor.
Fancy a few days in the Hilton. There, dude, put it on expenses.
There has been no publicly available impact assessment and cost analysis by the government. My lords.
When the noble lord says there's been no publicly available impact assessment, that is wrong. There is a publicly available impact assessment, not published by the sponsors, but published by the Department of Health and Social Care.
I will continue. My lords, almost 250 members of this House have been involved in a massive and sustained effort to try to make this bill safe and workable. The House staff, as we've heard, have been outstanding in their service to us all, and I'm sure we're extremely thankful and grateful to them for that. Much has been imputed, particularly in the press, about our motivation in closely scrutinising this bill, including that we are cruel. At no time have we been unaware of the suffering the bill's supporters have wanted to alleviate. However, it is not compassionate to pass a bill without addressing the many concerns raised by royal colleges, 3 committees of this House, myriad disability groups and others. That would be cruel to the poor and the vulnerable. Yet we, and by extension they, have been shown not a little contempt at times when we have taken time to lay out how this bill would affect them. And, my lords, we need to be wary of contempt when courtesy, as we reminded at the beginning, is the currency of this House. I continue to have a quiet concern about the language used. Orwell described political language as designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind. First, we talk about assisted dying, when surely we mean assisted suicide. Assisted dying is what Dame Cicely Saunders said hospices would provide, palliative care would provide. We will do all that, she said, we will do all that we can, not only to help you die peacefully, but to live until you die, because you matter until the last moment of your life. And I urge this government to do what no previous one has done.
No, I will not be eating cakes later, John. I'm on my diet. I'm on jack potatoes and bananas, mate.
Second, the legal qualifier.
I'm on my self-inflicted diet.
Terminal illness.
I need to lose another 10 kilos.
Well, we've heard already, but when that prognosis has at least a 20 to 30% unreliability, according to evidence given to the Select Committee, we should not pretend that legal solidity exists where actually there might be pure wind. Third, any notion that noble lords are filibustering rather than legitimately scrutinising this bill is unsustainable given the length of both the bill and the proceedings in the Commons and the fact that the mean length of speech
I've seen that, John, the other day, that TikTok you just sent me. that
Finally,
Labour
I
MP
detect
stealing
an
the
assumption
votes out
that
of someone's
anyone who is
letterbox.
religiously motivated should not be heard or impose their views on anyone else.
That's something they should bring in here as well, like what they got in America. They should get rid of postal voting in Britain. Well, not get rid of it, but you should only be able to post a vote if you're over 75, or if you're in the hospital, or in the army or something, posted abroad. Too many people are just sitting at home postal voting, and like especially with the certain communities, especially Islamic communities, they're getting like loads of them, and then they're all like giving them to their Imran, and the Imran's filling them all in for them.
Relational, and deny the loneliness of hyper-individualism. Second, it takes more faith to believe that this incredible world in which...
Hey, John Boy, come here, come here, John Boy. Who's the one who gets the cakes for you to eat at the end of a show? I'm the one to give you the cake. This boy, I tell you.
Are why this bill has needed robust and lengthy scrutiny from a very diverse group of peers. The process in this House and evidence from other countries has profoundly challenged the assumption that the service the bill attempts to provide can be safe. Many here say this is not based on faith but on evidence. To return to what I said in the beginning, this House has a premier global reputation for its thoroughness of scrutiny. When I was in Brussels, I talked to an Italian lawyer working for the European Commission, and he said that the work received from this House was second to no other secondary chamber in the world. My Lords, I believe we have lived up to that reputation over the course of this bill.
Time in this debate as a nurse and former Dean of the Florence Nightingale Faculty of Nursing, Midwifery and Palliative Care at King's College London. Our patron saints include Florence Nightingale and Cicely Saunders.
Look, lady, we don't care what you did, who you did, what you knew, who you know. Like, I don't care. Did you go bungee jumping last week? I don't care. Just say what you got to say.
These past few weeks. Both were deeply committed Christians, driven by the alleviation of human suffering and providing the practical means to do so through nursing and palliative care. Both were accomplished scientists, Nightingale being hugely influential in public health, epidemiology, statistics.
Oh, come on, Nightingale is from like the Victorian times. What's that got to do with today's nonsense? Jesus. These people are stuck in a fucking time warp sometimes.
To convey the holistic sense
the fucking glasses are stuck in a time warp. I think they're
both
causing it.
had more speculative sides to their characters. In the
What's
case
his
of
fucking
Nightingale, a fascination with Thomas à Kempis, Teresa of Avila, and the medieval mystics. She
What is this woman on about?
To paper,
Jesus.
with Benjamin Jowett, Regis Professor of
Fucking
Greek
hell, I
theology
don't know what you had for a
at
cup of
Balliol
tea
College,
this morning, but I
Oxford,
think someone put
who
something in
became
it.
her spiritual confessor. Cicely Saunders' library reveals a similar quest to understand Christian ethics and the existential nature of the human condition. Both were deeply interested in, troubled and possibly tormented by the challenge of squaring the existence of a benign God with the dark side of the soul and human suffering. Perhaps the ultimate question in their minds was an eschatological one. How will it all end? How will life end? And what will death be like? In a sense, that is what we have been wrestling with over the past months, struggling to reconcile very different perspectives on how it will end for ourselves, loved ones, patients and relatives. Some of us believe in enabling people to exercise autonomy over the end of life and nature of our own death, of their deaths, to have agency over the end. We have heard testimony from people who have chosen this path, as well as from relatives and loved ones. They have spoken so powerfully of the sense of freedom and relief it has provided, the physical, emotional and spiritual sense of peace for all concerned. There are those who don't agree that this should be possible. Such views.
Has she said anything of importance? She's been waffling on for about 3.5 minutes.
Some very difficult
And nothing she said has made any difference.
And that has convinced me that assisted dying is a positive step in easing people through to a good ending.
Okay, there we go.
Denying that
She could have said that in 10
who
seconds.
would like to
That's
avail
all she needs to
themselves
say.
of it when we can offer it, and when international evidence
She doesn't need to why they got to
demonstrates it is
waffle?
safe to do so.
Wiffle, waffle,
Not
waffle,
only
waffle,
seems
wiffle,
cruel,
waffle, waffle.
but unethical. When seen in the context of a bill that has passed in the elected chamber and is
I don't
supported
care what the
by
bill
public
did, what it
opinion,
didn't do. Just
that seems
say
like
a
a
bit.
dereliction of duty.
Fuck, they,
It is not our
these
job
people
to
frustrate
defy or
me. Just wanna
block
slap
the
them.
democratic process. My lords, I implore you, it is time to dissolve our differences and do the right thing by finding a way to pass this bill.
My
God.
lords.
That was a long way to go about. I agree with this bill.
My
We should
lords.
pass it. I think
My
it's a good
lords,
idea.
I rise very briefly to make some reflections, and it is a great privilege
Trust the church to start
follow
getting
my
in the
noble
bloody
friend,
way.
because she is Baroness Rafferty, for your contribution. I recognise the enormous amount of work that has gone into this committee stage, and I'm also grateful to Lord Faulkner for having met with me and the time that he has given me. Thank you for that. You will know that I oppose this bill in principle, both as a priest but also as
my
a
logic
nurse.
defeats that idea.
But what is clear
As I said
is that
yesterday,
there are some things that
Jesus
unify
chose. He was
whether we are
told
in
to
support
avoid
of this bill or we
the
oppose
Last
it.
Supper,
We are unified.
but
by
he
the
chose
fact
it,
that actually
and
what
he
we
knew it was
want
his
is
Last
as many
Supper.
people
In other words,
to die in a
he
dignified,
could have run away and hid in a
pain-free and
cave,
passionate
but he
way,
chose
with, in
to be
fact, the least
executed.
possible fear that
Essentially,
they
a
can
modern-day
have.
equivalent
I also believe that what we are
of
unified
death by
in is
cop.
that we do believe
Jesus
that there needs to
chose
be investment
death by
in
cop.
palliative care now.
In other words,
And
he
I do
chose,
welcome
and
the new
death by
modern,
cop is known as a
framework for
suicide.
palliative care that the government has
So
introduced, but also
these priests are
recognise the
wrong.
fact
They don't
that
understand how the
investment
Bible's
still
written.
needs to
They're
occur
misinterpreting
in
the
terms of
Bible,
financial
or you could
I also
reinterpret the
believe
Bible
that we're
differently.
unified in the fact that if this bill or this topic comes back in some form, is that we need to do our work differently.
I
There is
mean,
no
there's a
doubt
lot
in
of
my
talk about
mind that this is one
sacrifices
of
and
the
all that
big-
within the
biggest
Bible, isn't there?
societal shifts
Especially the
that
Old
we are
Testament,
seeing
Jesus.
Or will see.
Literally,
And therefore,
Jesus.
as we have done, we need to take
Maybe
our
not, maybe
role
Moses.
seriously. But actually, there is something about us learning for this process and looking forward to when it comes back.
Never
how we
trust
do
the
it
church.
differently. And I was very taken, although I don't know the details, I was very taken by the noble Baroness Butler Slaughter's view of pre-legislative scrutiny. And I do think that seriously that we should look at this. I also believe that we are united by the reality that we know this touches some of our deepest emotions. And I am very grateful for those who have shared their own experience and their stories. I have felt very humbled by having listened to those. As a Christian, for me, it clearly is an eschatological question, as raised by my noble friend Baroness Rafferty. And of course, as a Christian, for me, death is not the end. That there is hope in death and life everlasting. But as we talk about these things that touch us deeply, I think we need to recognise that we need to look after each other and we need to look after ourselves and recognise that this process will have impacted us as well as those listening. Thank you.
Noble Lord Farmer, my friend, Lord Farmer, that I shall seek to avoid pure wind. I share the disappointment of so many in this House, and indeed so many outside this House, that we have not completed our task of scrutinising this important bill. And scrutiny means not just debating 7 clauses of a 59-clause bill over 13 days. Scrutiny means completing committee stage, it means completing report stage, it means going to third reading, and it means voting on our differences. because there are profound differences.
She's
There are
boring.
differences which people can quite properly.
These
and
are all
reasonably
pretty, but
hold,
a couple of them
but
have
there
been
has to be a
good.
choice. There has to be a choice as to which side you are on. And our failure, and it is a real failure for whatever reason, it's a stain.
Nah, you're all
on the
losers, that's what you're
reputation
saying.
Of this house.
Loser.
And it's a stain on our reputation because the issues raised by this bill are profound. They're important to people. They're important to people who are worried about death. They're important to people who are worried they may be coerced into agreeing to assisted dying. They're highly contentious, and the bill has been passed by the other place, the democratically elected place. That does not mean that we have to agree with them, but it certainly does mean we have to come to a view and we have to vote on these matters. I incidentally have no doubt whatsoever that if we had got to report stage and third reading, and if we had voted on this bill, the overwhelming majority of this House would have voted in support of this bill and rejected the destructive amendments that were being put forward. And I think the opponents of the bill know that as well. Now, I want to say something, if I may, about the points made long ago by the noble lady Baroness Coffey. And she said, look at the reports of the Constitution Committee. Look at the report of the Delegated Powers Committee, which she said undermined this bill. But the points made by those committees have been debated over the last 14 days. They've been debated again and again. Those committees, as she will know, she hasn't been in this House that long, but she will know, those committees regularly criticise bills that are produced, government bills. And the way we deal with it is we address amendments to those bills to deal with those concerns.
I like this guy. Although he's waffling on a little bit, he's being concise and explanatory about what he's talking about. Everything he says, every sentence is a point.
That we scrutinise this important bill.
He's not saying like how I went shopping and my mum, blah blah blah. You know how I feel. He's explaining logistical steps.
We have to ensure that we get through the business so we can vote on the issues which divide us. And I have to say to the noble lady Baroness Coffey that there were many occasions during this committee stage when I personally was not convinced that she had any wish to see this bill complete its scrutiny so that we could reach conclusions and vote on what divides us. The length and the repetition of the speeches of many of the opponents of this bill have used up the time available. The same points were made again and again and again, and that's why this House has been denied the opportunity to move to report stage and to vote. Baroness Coffey then emphasised the need, and it's a vital need, to protect against coercion. Yes, and we've
she's not looking happy about him, is she? She looked a bit upset. He's fucking rinsing her.
The risks of coercion have to be balanced against the wishes, the interests of dying people who do voluntarily want to end their lives. And the opponents of this bill have given little, if any, weight to those wishes and those interests. And why? That is because they oppose the principle of this bill. And even more important than the damage to the reputation of this House is the failure of this House to give proper concern to the wishes of those who are dying and
Quite
who
right.
want
100%
voluntarily to end
100%
their
agree.
lives.
It's
Can I
not
say just a
about
word
their
to
little
Baroness Scotland,
personal
because she invited the
opinions.
House
It's
to
about
pay
doing the right
regard to
thing
what
for the
she
people
called
that
the
need
Attorney
it.
General's guidelines on
But
prosecutions.
it's the
The
ultimate
guidelines
democratic
were
decision.
introduced by the DPP,
The ultimate
Keir
democratic
Starmer,
decision.
whatever happened to him, because
One's
he did
personal
so
democratic
because
decision.
the appellate committee of this House, in its final case, before it was replaced by the Supreme Court, required him to do so. The case was brought by Debbie Purdy, and I was proud to be her advocate in the appellate committee. But what I say to Baroness Scotland is that this bill, if it were to be enacted, would provide a far better means of regulation and protection in relation to those who are at the end of their lives than guidelines which involve the DPP exercising a discretion not to prosecute after the event. That is a wholly unsatisfactory way of dealing with this matter. The opponents of this bill have criticised Lord Faulkner for not accepting their amendments. But on so many of the issues, Lord Faulkner and those who support him simply do not agree with those amendments. We think that many of those amendments will undermine the purpose and the effect of this bill. They will make it exceptionally difficult, if not impossible, for those who want and need to use its provisions to do so. The way to resolve such disputes is to vote, and that's what we can't do. The noble and learned lady, Baroness Butler-Sloss, who I see is not in her place, she said a further bill should have pre-legislative scrutiny.
Right, guys, we're
I
going
normally
to
agree
end
with
it
the
here,
noble
and I'm going to
lady, but
read
not
you
on
over.
this. The disagreements surely are clear.
So-
After 14 days, we
All right, mate. All right, mate. Thank you. I can't watch it all day. But you are welcome to watch. I'll put the link, actually. I'll put the link in my chat. Hold on. Copy. If I put this link in my chat here, if you want to carry on watching this, here's the link. I'll throw it in now. Well, I'm going to go and raid the Lotus Eaters, who we just watched a little bit off earlier. And because I'm going to go and watch it myself. I always watch the Lotus Eaters every day. So I'm going to confirm the raid. And you're about to be sent in under the tunnels through there. And I'm going to go and watch it myself. All right, thank you for joining me today. We'll catch up with you tonight, Far Cry Friday tonight. Thank you for the donations as well. Dustin, thank you. John Boy for your $5. Dustin for the $10. Wow, thank you guys. And yeah, we'll see you tonight for a bit of Far Cry Friday.
Hello, Catholic. May I make a confession? It is that I have learnt an enormous amount from listening on almost every moment of this bill. And the one argument that most
property, and it's for this reason, as for many reasons in fact, but this was one of the things that of course prompted Enoch Powell